Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 310. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, Drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You Know.
How's it going, eh?
Jim, on this episode, we're going to be talking, we have a Batman Fest. We're going to be talking about Batman Inc., Batman and Robin. We're going to be talking about Batman number 10, the big reveals in that issue as well. But we're also going to be talking about Batman continuity and how the new 52 has compressed a lot of his continuity and how we feel about how that's working and how we're resolving that in our own heads. Because I think it's an interesting topic to talk about because I think he's the one character in the DC universe where so much of his continuity has been compressed. How is that working in our minds? So it'll be a fun discussion to have. We also talk about things like Ravagers, Earth 2 number 2, and Hawkman are also discussed on this episode. So it's a packed show. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Over at DCBService.com, we're talking about the Savage Hawkman this episode. Issue number 12 is going to be solicited. It's $2.99 regularly, 40% off, only $179. Remember that they are a comic book digital partner. You earn 5% from each of your purchases as credit towards your DCB service order. It's a great way to save after that already amazing discounts. If you're buying digitally, remember, it doesn't cost any more to buy them through DCBService.com, and they're a show sponsor, so please go to their website, and you can get them on any of your apps then anywhere else through your accounts. So it's a great way to support a show sponsor of ours without spending any more money than you already are. I want to shout out InStockTrades.com. They're doing this really cool up to 60% off DC sale. They have a huge selection of DC trade paperbacks and hardcovers at 60% off. So, and that includes some from the Vertigo line as well. So they've got great deals on all kinds of trades that are up to 40 to 60% off from DC Comics up there. But that 60% off DC sale, I've already seen like 7 or 8 of them that I want to get. It's 60% off. Like All New Adam is a series that I love, and I felt like it didn't get enough notice. And Ryan Choi is one of my favorite Adams. I think it's just a great ongoing series. It's written by Gail Simone. Terrific, terrific book. They have the All New Adam trades, My Life in Miniature. This is the first 6 issues of the series for $6. That's a 99 cents an issue right in there. It's a great, great book. It's a $14.99 trade that's 60% off, only $6. So, I mean, it's kind of a great way. They got the 52, the covers. So anybody who liked that 52 series, the covers hardcover is 60% off. It's only $8. So there's a lot of these things that maybe you were thinking about at the time, like, wow, I'd love to add these into my collection, that are available for 60% off from InStockTrades.com. So go check out their website. I always love these kind of deals. So I want to thank DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com for supporting our show. I do want to shout out our show Facebook group. We've got a great Facebook group with a great community, and it's some lively discussions over there. I really enjoy checking in and seeing what people are chatting about, so I just want to shout that out as being a destination if you want to chat about comics. What kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in depth in the plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
There they are, all alone except for that old character.
Jim, we're going to talk first about Ravagers, and we're going to talk casually about issues 1 and 2, mainly focusing on issue 2. First of all, this series spun out of the culling. It's funny how Titans was this thing when the new 52 was announced, and then they were going to be rebooting Teen Titans. One of my biggest worries was the whole Titans universe and Superboy. Now they've spun into Ravagers. I can't tell you how much I'm enjoying this world. I love Ravagers. I love this team. I love that they brought in Caitlin Fairchild from Gen 13, but then they're introducing new characters as well, like this Ridge and the new Thunder and Lightning, who are characters that I'm digging. And it looks like Beast Boy and Terra are going to be a part of this team because Beast Boy obviously was not appearing majorly in this issue, but he was a very big focus of discussion behind the scenes, the whole mystery of, you know, why he isn't able to be controlled by the villain of this piece, the Shadow Walker.
Yeah.
And I think that's because of, did you take that was because of his shape-shifting, that maybe that fell off? I don't know. They don't know what his powers are?
I took it that it was because of the shape-shifting, because it's, you know, like an implant or mounted or something. And so when he shifts his form, it can't shift with him. So probably like one of the first times he shifted, it didn't go with him and it didn't stay. It just dropped off.
One of the things I'm really enjoying about the whole Ravagers concept is they don't instantly trust each other. And I think that's terrific. And to me, I find the growth of morality and trust and what is it and, who should you stick by, who shouldn't you stick by. I love that each character has their own motivations and reasons, whether they were genetically altered, they were kidnapped, whatever, or a combination of the above, for not trusting Fairchild, who worked for the group that was nowhere, that was taking them down to begin with. I love that this is like, it's not like, hey, everything's okay, you helped us escape, and now we're best buddies and all that. And where they are, being on that, block of ice and all that and just barely escaping everything, I can understand why they're like, hey, we're not a team now. You're not our leader. We just happen to have banded together to escape because it was a moment of convenience, not because we're instantly buddies in that. That's something I really like, because sometimes these team-ups, I understand if they're like all well-known heroes and things where you can say, okay, I'm teaming up with like Superman. Well, you can kind of knuckle up with him and go, I think I can trust Superman. But Ridge? No. I'm not instantly going to trust this guy. Yet they have to find ways to coexist. They have to find ways to interact. They have to find ways to survive. And they're learning the hard way that being separate, while it may seem like you're not around people that you can't trust, being separate just isn't going to cut it. And that I'm finding to be just a little different than other team-up books that we're seeing in the DCU right now. And I like that. Ravagers has a nice build because the team feels different. Their reasons for being together feels different, and I like that.
Yeah, definitely. And a couple of the little stuff that I've noticed on second and third read-throughs came with Rose. Because every time I'm reading her, I keep trying to see, is she going to be good? Is she going to be bad? Is there going to be a redemption of Rose? Will she be on the team? What's going to happen to her? And I love the couple references to Caitlin, where you can almost see them I didn't know she was still a factor. And, just her. I'm hoping I'm not reading more into it. I'm hoping that she wants to protect her friend, and this has all been part of a master plan these two had. Because Caitlin mentions she had a plan. It's been shifting and it's been changing, and I'm hoping Rose is part of it, because those two characters that Rose apprehended, I was thinking, okay, they're dead. Well, we find out this issue, no, they're not dead. They're beaten and bloodied and savagely hurt, but they're still breathing. And when I read stuff like that, it gets me going, is Rose really a good guy? Is Rose really working with Caitlin? And this is their plan all along to kind of, get everybody out free and clear.
Now, see, that's one way to look at it. I guess I look at it different, and I'm not saying you're wrong, because we're speculating on this. So I like everything you're saying, so I'm not disputing you. I guess my take on it was, though, that Rose wasn't a part of Caitlin's plan, and that's part of the battle between the two of them. Caitlin has all of a sudden shifted gears in a major way. She left Rose behind. Rose does not know why Caitlin's feeling the way that she is. Rose was not a part of the turmoil that Caitlin went through, or the behind the scenes, or whatever led Caitlin completely down this path. Rose was not fully part of that. So I think what we're seeing, and I agree with you in those moments we're seeing with her when she mentions Caitlin, I didn't realize she was still a part of this, that is the part of Rose we're seeing that still has feelings of friendship, and maybe she hasn't even realized them yet. I don't know. Rose is a gray area, and I am actually enjoying that about her, because I don't know which way she's going to go. Is she just going to stay with Harvest, or is she going to go with Caitlin? I like that we don't know that. I totally agree with you that the way you presented it is one of the ways this could be going. And there could be some behind-the-scenes plan. Except I think Caitlin's plan is Caitlin's alone. That's my take on it right now. I could be totally wrong. It could be the way you mentioned. And I would be 100% fine with that, because I see that possibility of the scenario. But there's that part of me that's thinking that Rose may not have been a part of it. And that might be the reason why there was so much friction between the two of them. And also why Rose is sticking with Harvest, because she isn't in Caitlin's head. She doesn't see things the way that Caitlin does. And what Caitlin's done with her choice is something that's baffled her. And she feels betrayed from a friend that she trusted, and that led to the bitterness. So that's kind of the way I see it right now, but yet I'm not convinced that your scenario is any less valid. It's interesting because I like that. I like that with Rose. I don't think anything is set in stone. Let me ask you this: would you care if she stayed a villain?
No, because Rose is an awesome villain. So she's as long as we don't lose her style, which we obviously haven't yet. So I don't see if they keep her a villain. I have no problem with her being a bad guy. Just like just like Deathstroke. I like the fact that Deathstroke's a killer. I like the fact that he is this evil son of a gun. That yes, he's an interesting character, and when she's on the dark side, she's an interesting character. But she's always one of those ones that I always liked her redemption. I always liked when they brought her back over, and when she fights through. It's that kind of the duality nature of what is too much, what is a hero, what's the line that a hero shouldn't cross, and when they dance right up to that line, they don't jump over it. I like those stories, but keep her if she stayed a villain. Full-on hardcore killer, I wouldn't mind that either because we get some cool scenes with her.
When they're on that big ice block, I like the whole situation with Ridge. And one of the things I really like about Ridge right now is he's this brute who had a conscience. Where he started to look at what was going on around him and then thought about his relationship with Fairchild and made this decision to put himself in a situation that is much worse for him. I mean, he was one of the Ravagers.
Yeah.
This was a choice he made, very similar to Caitlin, to really turn his back on the world that he was in. I love that test that she has him do. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there, but I just want to make this point beforehand, because this is the reason why I went back to the ice block. I love the fact that she knows certain things in the data about his powers that he might not know, but yet she's not 100% sure what will happen if he goes underwater. Can he hold his breath that long? Can he use his tail and his feet to get them there? This is all a part of where, okay, I'm speculating. These are what I think his powers are. This is what I think he can do to get us to this boat. I like that. I like that he's a new character. She wouldn't know everything about him. He wouldn't know everything about himself. They're discovering things by experimenting along the way. Well, as a kid, when I read Claremont's X-Men, I liked things like the fastball special and stuff like that came up from the heroes experimenting. This is experimenting. I like this kind of thing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was kind of going to co-sign with some of the stuff you're saying just about his nature. And we don't know exactly where he stands. And he's another character that could very easily do a heel turn, who could go back to the dark side, who could, start working with Harvest or any of the other villains they encounter throughout the time. And there was that really cool moment right before he dove in the water where he's like, you really do have a plan. You do have a safe house. It's just like, yes, I'm holding you to that. And just that moment right there where he's like, okay, I'm giving you this chance, but guess what? You double-cross me. When everything's said and done, I dive in this water, I freeze my tail off, and you don't give me what you promised. There's gonna be repercussions, and that's the thing with his character. He is also another giant unknown factor. He chose to help out the heroes. He chose to help out the good side, but he could very easily go back over. He could very easily go, hey. And if not with Harvest, with a different group, because maybe the door is closed with Harvest. Maybe, and I think he's probably smart enough to know that if he tried to go back there, there'd be consequences to his actions. So if he's going to go back, he's going to have to do something big to make amends. So maybe he'll betray the team. Maybe he'll set up the team, or maybe he could flat out just leave and go somewhere else, and the character could disappear. There's a lot of different variations with this guy that I could see him doing that I couldn't see a character like Beast Boy doing. And I think that, for me, is kind of the neat and interesting thing about him is just there's this grand unknown factor of what could happen, and the swerve could come at any minute. And I think there's an anticipation on my part waiting for the swerve, waiting for the turn, waiting for that.
I don't see that happening with Ridge. And I'll tell you why. He's not afraid like the others are. I see, more likely like a Thunder and a Lightning or a Beast Boy, for example. Although I don't know about Beast Boy, maybe Terra. I don't know. One of the reasons why I don't think Ridge would do it, I don't see Ridge as being afraid here. He made this conscious choice to side with Caitlin. He did this on his own. He made this decision to make the turn himself and to walk away from them. Whereas these others, it was about escape. It wasn't about banding together. He decided to trust in and put faith in Caitlin. which is a different distinction from everybody else who's there. So I see now everything you laid out in the scenario you presented is, I think, what every single other member of the team is thinking about Ridge. But I don't think that's true with what Ridge would do. Because I don't see the fear there from him. I see him genuinely, like, as long as Caitlin doesn't turn on him, as long as Caitlin is somebody he can trust. Now, if Caitlin presents herself in a way where he can no longer trust her, then I go with that scenario where he would turn because the trust has been broken. But as long as she maintains the level of trust with him, then I think he'll follow her.
Well, the betrayal may not come in an upfront, blatant betrayal on Caitlin's part to him. Mm-hmm. Just a little thing like, where if he finds out she's improvising or she's shooting from the hip, he could perceive that as the betrayal. He could very easily, and he's putting his faith in Caitlin. Well, once faith is betrayed or once faith is lost, you go the opposite direction. You go the opposite way. So it's not, I wouldn't see him going back to Harvest out of fear. I see him going back to Harvest because Caitlin didn't Caitlin didn't give him everything that she promised. And once he starts seeing that, okay, this isn't it, this isn't it, this isn't it, that's it.
What is she not doing that she's promised?
She hasn't yet, but what if she doesn't? Like, you think about where she's the whole time, she's like, I got a plan, guys. Don't worry, I got a plan. He finds out she's improvising.
She isn't, though. She said there is. No. But take a look. She even says in her internal dialogue, there is a plan, but it's evolving. And it has to evolve. Their situation would call for that. That's good leadership. I don't think she's not lying about that. It's just not as cut and dry and set in stone. I think if she told them that there's a plan, but it's evolving, I think if she said, but it's evolving, I don't think Ridge would have a problem with that. I think the other two would.
See, I think Ridge would have a problem with it because I think Ridge would look more towards, he wouldn't look at it, the evolving thing. He would say, he's not a trusting individual. He's not this person who, goes, oh, okay, hey, no problem. By having that not exactly boom, 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 boom plan, I think he would see that as a betrayal. I think he would see that as, she's lying to me. And once he gets that notion of someone's lying to me in his head, he'll take it the other way.
See, I think she does have a boom, 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 boom plan, but she has to evolve how they get to that end game because of the situation that's presented itself. Like, I don't think her plan involved them being where they're at in the water.
Right.
But that's part of the evolving. You have to now say, okay, my plan is to get them here. I mean, her plan was to break them out. That happened. Now, I think what she's discovering right now is that her plan, and especially by the end of this issue, her plan to break them out might have been a huge mistake because she's helping Harvest with what Harvest actually wants, and she started to discover that. So that's going to be something where now all of a sudden she's going to have to evolve her plan in some way. I'm going to be curious to see who she involves and how. I do think Ridge, though, it's funny with Ridge. I see Ridge as somebody who has remorse and is really trying to help out a situation to better himself because he sees what he was doing as being a horribly wrong path. Now, I think outwardly, everybody he's with does not trust him. And I think they don't trust him because they're seeing him the same way you mentioned. But I don't think that internally that's who he is. I think that's what I find interesting about him. He totally presents himself in every single way that you just said. But there's times where he does things where he could really tell them all, like, well, if I can swim underwater and go to the boat, why am I going to take all of you? He could have done that there. He didn't. And I don't see him being wired that way. He's got... I want to be careful over generalizing this. He's got that Wolverine factor to him. He's got the Timberwolf factor to him, where I think he's going to rub people the wrong way through the entire series with the way that he carries himself. Yet I think we're going to find that he is going to develop into one of the most loyal members of the team because of the fact of who he is and a certain amount of conviction we're going to see from this guy. I don't know. I could be dead wrong, and that's speculating again. So, I mean, I could be totally wrong on this guy. But there's something I'm really liking the character. I'm liking our discussion about the character. Whether I'm right, whether you're right, it doesn't matter. I love that with these characters, and it's something that's coming out of this discussion very quickly, in 2 issues of this series, you and I are already ready to debate these characters. We both got beliefs on what we like about Rose, what we like about Ridge. Whether I'm right, you're right, it doesn't matter. When a book starts captivating you to the point that you're doing this kind of thing, that's where you got a winner on your hand.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
I mean, I'm into this title.
Yeah. And this is another one of those situations where we have little funny moments, moments that made me chuckle that, didn't take away from any of the action and adventure. Ridge rips that thing off of his chest, and he's laying on the ground. There's pretty much a pool of blood, and like, well, you ready? Come on, let's go. He goes, sure, I'll come along as soon as I stop convulsing. And it was just a little, I kind of chuckled just at the little sarcasm I was imagining in his voice. And then later on when he rips those controlling things off Lightning, I was, it's kind of wrong for it to enjoy the pain he caused her. But he was like, his one thing was like, yeah, I'd apologize for doing this, but Lightning so deserves this. And rips him off. It was little stuff like that. It just kind of had me chuckling that within the action, there is still that, I don't want to say playfulness, but there is still that fun and playfulness that I always got from the Teen Titans. I got from the really good teen books. Well, I'm still getting it from this book, even though this is a little bit darker. This is a little bit more on edge. These were, teen superheroes who've been augmented horribly against their will for the purpose of becoming assassins. And, okay, insert the laugh track right here. It's not a funny concept, but there still is some funny moments in these characters. It's kind of like their growth, either dealing with the pain, dealing with the horrors they've done, and just it's a way for them to get back into their humanity. And I'm looking forward to seeing if that kind of stuff happens, how the team dynamic and how their interactions like this will change as the series goes on.
In the heat of the battle, though, in the heat of the moments, though, we see them for what they really are. Because Lightning's all about her brother, but Thunder's getting on board. He's realizing, wait a minute, no. We can't be alone. We need to team up together. We need to help each other. Ridge, I have no doubt, even though he said that, and I totally agree that he meant every word of what he was saying, he doesn't mind causing her the pain, but if somebody was ready to shoot her, he would push her out of the way, he would protect her, because I think that's instinctually what he will do. I do think there's a good guy in there with Ridge. And there's, something about the way the character's being presented and he's carrying himself. I don't think if you were to say that to him, I think he'd laugh at you. But I think at his core, when we see these characters battle, I think that's when we're seeing them for really who they are. Thunder, we're seeing as more of a logical guy. Lightning will follow her brother because of her relationship with them. So I think she's going to stay with the team because he will. And it'll take her longer to develop relationships with the team than maybe he will, at least from the way I'm seeing them presented. It's something I'm really digging about these characters is the slow evolution of them from events, from circumstances that have put them on the run. And they just feel realistic. I actually really like that Beast Boy and Terra aren't featured in this issue because I think focusing on a smaller batch of the team so far is helping us to get to know them and how they interact with each other. And I think that spotlighting was really, really good in the opening couple of issues because I feel like I'm really getting to know these characters. And attachment, when you're doing a new series, with the amount of product out there, is really, really important right away. Caitlin's been introduced already in Superboy. Good one to make sure you've got as a focal point in the issue. But these other characters, it's really, really pivotal that, the other three in the first couple issues and how they interact with Caitlin, you want to make us buy into them. So this was really good storytelling, I think, early on, because I do feel like I've got an attachment to the characters that we've seen thus far.
Oh, yeah. And this is really good building for the future. This is a series so far, 1 and 2. I don't think we really have any missed beats where it's, well, actually 1 and 2, but there's the pre-stuff as well. But just going through, just looking at these two, they've built through the story. They introduce a couple quick villains, but you still have a nice comfort level with them. But we never lost any action. It wasn't like lengthy dialogue or anything that would, slow things down. It was always boom, 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 boom. These kids are being hunted down. I always had that sense of urgency with them. I always had that feeling like, okay, it's the scramble. Improvise, adapt, overcome. You got your plan going here. Hey, got a shift. Okay, we just dropped into the middle of the ocean on top of an iceberg. Improvise. Let's go with this idea. Let's go this way. And I always liked that feel and that vibe I got from it. And then as we get near the ending, with when you're talking about just the introduction of Beast Boy and just a little flash of blood, I was like, oh, this is again, it's an ending of an issue, has me locked in, has me going, I can't wait for next issue for Brother Blood, because I want to see what they're going to do with him. How's he going to make an appearance? What's going to happen? What's going to be different with him?
One of the things I want to say, too, for anybody who maybe didn't read the culling, hasn't been reading Superboy or Teen Titans, I think you can pick this series up and jump right in, just knowing that these are heroes that are in this one, or I guess I should call them at this point, this team that's being put together. They're on the run from the Ravagers. The Ravagers are hunting them down because of their powers to bring them back to this being called Harvest. They just escaped. And that's really all of their status quo that we really know. They were prisoners, and they escaped. I think that's all you need to know to jump into this series. In the culling, you see how the escape happened and all that, but, realistically, they're in a brand new status quo with issue 1 of Ravagers. You don't need to have read the culling other than to know that they escaped from this big event where they were held prisoners. Because they didn't have a big history before the culling, right?
No, they really, these characters, other than Caitlin and Rose were the only two really who had we had really an exposure to or a history with, and that was just through the Superboy stuff. So all the other characters, it's the Cullen was the introduction of them, and then Ravagers is fleshing them out.
Yeah, so I really think that this is a series that, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is I'm for potential Wildstorm fans out there that are listening to this that maybe are like, I'm not reading Superboy, I'm not reading Teen Titans, but I'm a fan of Caitlin Fairchild, I was a fan of, that kind of concept. There is kind of a nice DC Wildstorm hybrid to this book. Everything that I liked about things like Worldstorm, which you and I were both big fans of, are here. I think this is really a cool relaunch, and I think that it's very accessible early on. Brand new characters are being introduced. Harvest is the only villain that is reappearing, and his crew are the only villains reappearing from the culling, but, they're out to just recapture them. So it's really these characters that are on the run from the big bad. And that's their status quo right from the get-go. And they tell you everything you really need to know in the first 2 issues as far as who they are and what their status quo is. So I think this series is very well produced. I think it's accessible. I didn't feel like I had to go back to the culling to, catch anything in any of these 2 issues. They referenced everything you needed to know. I also like the Keeper. What possesses you to say, whether it was him or whoever was creating it, let's take this weird-looking little guy who obviously doesn't have legs, I'm guessing. Well, I guess I don't know what was sewn into there. I'm guessing he doesn't. He's just a torso. But let's attach him to a full creepy-looking robot body in the chest.
Yeah.
Obviously he's not going to be much of a ladies' man. So I don't know what the thinking was there in this, but I absolutely love him because it's a creepy-looking design. It adds an intimidation factor to this guy. He's the creepy sidekick of Harvest, on whatever level he is. He's smart, too, because for some reason those little creepy dudes that they put in the chest of a robot, they're right? Am I guessing the Keeper's a smart dude?
Oh, yeah. He's got to have he's put in the body of the robot because that's the physical, so he's got to make aptitude for it. So he's got the brains, this is the body, together we're an ultimate combo. Now, I always wondered, why not just the robot head, just take that part. So take that part off and have his head fit where the robot's head would be.
That's my point.
I always, every time I see stuff like this, I always go, why are they doing it like that? Why don't just what was it? The Doom Patrol's big villain.
Oh, the Monsieur Mala and the Brain?
Yeah, Monsieur Mala and the Brain. I never understood why Monsieur Mala the Brain never got just a massive robotic body and just really beefed it up that way, and I never understood why he always seemed like he was in a relatively weakened state, especially if he didn't have Monsieur Mala by him.
I don't know. It's funny when you take a look at this. See, I guess the Keeper, I'm looking at the potential with those tubes that go into the robot. I guess he could be put on a new accessory anytime he wanted, I guess.
Yeah.
He's fully detachable. which is great because, I mean, he'd make an excellent action figure because of that. I don't know. I just was laughing when I saw him because there's something about, I think it's Superhero Comics 101.
Yeah.
The creepier you look, the smarter you are.
Yeah.
And which means he's got to be, in that top 10 list of brainy people.
He had a great intro. You think about it, the first couple panels, it's not until really, that first one you get that back view and you can't see any of the creepiness. And then when he turns around, that's when you see it. So you get a nice little bam, shock, kind of shock and awe story, introduction to him. So that for me was kind of a neat moment. And I actually did kind of, whoa, what the heck's? What's it? You stop and you look at it a little bit. You go back to it a little bit later. And it was funny. One of the things with him, I was immediately thinking how he's going to get taken down. And I was immediately thinking Rose is going to separate him from his body in a non-natural way. Not in the way he was intended to go. And I'm just thinking, the tubes will get cut, it'll start flailing, then shoom, sword, clean cut, or maybe even Ridge doing something like that.
Oh, I see Ridge being the one to do it, because I'm not convinced Rose is turning to the side of the Angels.
Yeah, and you know what, to be honest, I wouldn't be having an issue with that, but I definitely could see Ridge just separating them physically.
Right, because I think Warblade and Rose, I think they're meant to stay a team.
Yeah,
I don't know, I like I said, I'd be fine if I'm wrong. I like that they're introducing more. I don't know how, I got to admit, my Wildstorm 101 is not the best in the world. I know, like a lot of the main heroes, I enjoyed books like Backlash. I enjoyed some Gen 13 along the way. I enjoyed some Wildcats, but I read broken runs of all of those titles, so I'm not the biggest expert in the world. I know I like the characters. I've always liked the universe. I've loved the creativity of them. I like, as we're seeing these characters, this Shadow Walker I thought was a really cool introduction. Because, again, that creep horror factor, I like that this book has a horror element to it. Not overdone, but, this one girl that the colony guard, who was supposed to be watching Beast Boy, she's just, because of the fact that Beast Boy was escaped, like, what was she going to really do to stop that?
Well, that's the problem. She failed. You only fail him once.
Right.
Just once.
It's just a terrific title, and I agree. Brother Blood was just a great character in the DC universe in the previous continuity. Speaking of creep factor, it's a character that I wanted to see come back. So, and I love that that's our introduction back to Beast Boy, that there is some kind of connection there. He knows that he's coming. Why Beast Boy has that connect? We're going to find out more, I guess, about Beast Boy and his history. I don't know. It's one of those things. Go ahead.
My guess is because Beast Boy is part of the Red, because he's the animal kingdom and all that, which is the reason he's not green in this universe. He's part of that whole Animal Man, the Red. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing there's something with the life force, the life essence of animals, and the blood connection. And that's where I think, Brother Blood is going after him for. Because Beast Boy has this direct connection to the Red. Brother Blood wants that connection for the life, for the essence, and for the mysticism of and whatnot. I'm thinking that's where it's coming from, and that's where it's going. And to be honest, that'd be kind of another neat tie-in with Animal Man, because I like the crossovers that we're getting and the associations with the red and the green and the rot. All the different coming together and different appearances and different heroes that have connection to it. That was something I was kind of enjoying. When I first heard Beast Boy was red, I was like, what? Come on, he's always green. You're changing. And then once I started reading the Animal Man stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's a good connection. And then as when they introduced Brother Blood, I was like, oh, maybe we got something going on there as well. It's, and the other thing I was also thinking is, what if there are other variations and factions within the Red? There's this noble intention, this noble purpose, but what if there is a more sinister faction within the Red? That could, again, be another variation and kind of another spin on this part of the universe.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see. It's funny how you connected that with the Red. I didn't see it that way, but I agree with the red coloring of him. I can totally see maybe that being the reason why. I don't know. I don't know what they're going for, but it's going to be interesting to see what the connection is with Brother Blood. Are you right? Is that the connection? I'd be fine if that was. It's something that has a rich history in the Titans. I thought characters like Trigon, when he was introduced in the Wolfman and Perez run, one of the things that I really enjoyed about Trigon was that he was a character that had that kind of horror, that kind of darkness. It was a very mature villain. And I think that's something that we're getting out of Brother Blood in this book as well, is that Brother Blood is one of those characters, very mature, very, creepy, and that how is he getting inside Beast Boy's head? Why Beast Boy? Why not Terra? Is it the red like you're mentioning, or is it something else having to do with Beast Boy's origin? I thought it might be more to do with his origin, but I could be wrong there. I don't know. I liked your red connection. I don't know what it is. So I love that this book, and it's one of the things I think that's consistent through our entire discussion, has made us want to speculate.
Yeah.
You and I don't talk about this stuff, and we're not recording deliberately so we don't know what the other's going to say. And I think that plays out well when we do these chats, because a lot of times we'll surprise each other. And I love that we both had the similar exposure to this title, similar feelings with this title, that we really were thinking about, hey, where's this book going? And who are these characters? And why do we care about them? And where do we think they're heading? You do that in 2 issues. I think that's something that is pretty spectacular.
Yeah, so you got a hit. Yeah. You got a hit here.
So I do hope this is a book that people, if you're looking for a new team book to try out, you're only 2 issues in. It's an easy jump on. And, this is something, if you got that title where you're like, I'm not really digging this right now, maybe give this a shot, because it's something a little different. I really dig it so far. I hope it continues to maintain this style. And honestly, with the previews of Brother Blood, it looks like it's going to. It's because I really like the kind of dark on the run, feature of this thing, and they're on their own, because I can't see them getting a team up with other heroes so quickly with where they've come from.
It's going to take a little time before there's some other connection, some other trust even. And the always it was running through my head is what's going to happen the next time they meet up with the Teen Titans. Will there be, a comfort? Will there be uneasiness? And also what's going on with the Titans? So there's a lot of questions that are, left out there. So that's a whole nother area that the Ravagers Titans team up or meeting or interaction again. Same thing with Superboy. I'm just waiting for the moment when Superboy or Wonder Girl are involved or somehow associated with the Ravagers and they have some dealings with it. How's that going to go? There's so many different things that can happen that can be introduced with this team that I'm definitely looking forward to what we got coming down the line.
I wonder what they're going to call themselves, because they aren't the Ravagers. So I wonder what they're going to call themselves.
I'm thinking they're going to call themselves the Ravagers and take the name back.
I don't know, because it's a name that Harvest gives his people. Unless they somehow defeat Harvest, I don't know why, because I always took the title of the book to be labeling the people that are chasing them, not them.
True, and that definitely could happen, but part of me thinks one of the great ways to kind of, stick it to Harvest is take over the name of the team, of his team, say, no, we're now the Ravagers. We just kicked your butt. We are now, this is who we are now, and we're in charge of our own destiny. We're masters of our own destiny. Yes, we are Ravagers, but we are in charge of ourselves now. You no longer rule us.
I love that you keep putting the N in there, too.
I did?
Actually, they could call themselves the Ravagers.
Yeah, that's what they're going to call themselves.
Yeah, nobody's using that. I don't know. I liked your scenario there. We'll see where it goes.
Nothing like the handy-dandy electro-claw for carving through metal doors.
Jim, if we could, I want to talk about Earth 2 number 2, just because I think this issue was surrounded, I don't know if controversy is the right word, buzz might be the more thing. Did you feel there was a lot of controversy? And I guess I've seen some people that were upset about it, which you're going to have to anytime you make a change to the character. I guess I didn't always, a lot of the comments that I'm seeing from it aren't really controversy as much as buzz surrounding Alan Scott being gay.
Yeah, see, for me, I don't have an issue or see anything wrong with it. And to be honest, I haven't been... I'm not seeing massive outrage and massive, oh my God, I was expecting it to be worse. I honestly was expecting there to be people wanting to burn the book in effigy just because they've disgraced the image of Alan Scott. I was really expecting this to go a lot worse than what I'm seeing. And I'm actually kind of glad that people like, oh, okay, and just going on with the story. And it's it's, as you said, it's more buzz. It's not like, this dark evil that's infesting our children's minds and stuff like that. I was really glad that I'm not seeing that side of it. And I really was thinking they were going to go that route. There would be that problem, and there would be people who would be so outraged by the fact that they have an openly gay, superhero who kisses his boyfriend right there in the book. I was expecting there to be some reaction to it, and it didn't happen. Or I didn't see it and I didn't read it. So if it's out there, maybe I'm just in La La Land and I'm missing it. But
his son Obsidian, was, and I think that was the point of this. Was you're taking Obsidian out of the equation now, so now we can do something like this with a brand new relaunched continuity with this character. So I'm a huge Alan Scott fan. I love the character. I don't feel like, first of all, we haven't seen enough of the character as Green Lantern. We haven't seen any of the character as Green Lantern yet. I'm assuming this is going to lead right to that in the next issue. But once we see him as Green Lantern, I think that we'll get a real vibe for how we feel with it. But having seen the actual scene, I didn't think it was any different than if you'd been with a girl. Yeah. I wouldn't want to see every character in the book switched to being gay. I think that would be done just for shock value. Whereas I think in this case they're looking to say, okay, how can we balance out the team and kind of add some. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm very curious to see where it goes. It's funny how the writer attached to the title affects my feelings on it a lot more than it would, like knowing that James Robinson is a fan of Alan Scott and loves the character has me have a lot more confidence in making a choice like this than a writer who maybe has never written or liked the character of Alan Scott before. It's funny how that vibe is really affecting my comfort level. Like, I'm totally comfortable with it because of the writer. And knowing the writer's love for the character, we're going to get tried and true Alan Scott, who just happens to be gay. I think it's going to be a lot more Batwoman than shock value.
Actually, yeah, that's a good. That'll be a good comparison. I think we're going to get a superhero who is gay, not a gay superhero, and it's a little bit of semantics there, but it does tell a lot because Alan's a character that I have a pretty good comfort level with. I had a pretty good understanding of with him, but it was the older Alan Scott, the mentor to the heroes, not this younger hero. So I'm like, okay, who is this guy? What's he about? So I'm going to need to see a little bit more time of him green to see where it goes and who he is. But right from the gate, I do have a comfort with him as a person. You don't just see the billionaire, playboy, or the billionaire interested in making he's only interested in making money. You're seeing there is a moral responsibility to him. There is a bit of a, he's not just out for himself. So I can kind of see this character becoming a hero. I can see this character putting on the ring and becoming the Green Lantern. I can, this foundation that we have, this building block right here, I can see this going into the Green Lantern that I know. So we have this opening. I'm like, all right, let's see this. We got a ground floor. I'm starting off fresh with the guy. So let's see where this heads out. And it's a pretty cool, so far story, and even just all the other heroes building. We have some great Flash moments, some great, Jay Garrick stories that, again, another character, I only know the old Jay. I don't know young Jay. I don't know the little bit of a slacker, irresponsible guy who's, given the helm and given the speed of a god. And so I got to get used to this guy. But you know what? I'm seeing glimpses of the guy that I know, the guy that I trust in this kid. I'm seeing, this kid could maybe turn into, the Jay that I know, turn into the Flash that I know. It's kind of a fun, exciting journey for me.
When Mr. Terrific shows up, one of the things I really like is it again sets the tone for giving nods to the people that are tried and true old JSA fans who want to feel a connection to that. I love the idea that we have this world that honors Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, because that was always Earth 2 to me, was the world that honored them. They'd moved on from them. In this case, it's for a different reason. They all died and in this valiant battle, but it's still the same concept. They are kind of the, Superman Remembered, the Wonder Woman statue in the background, the 5-year anniversary of Batman and Robin's deaths, Steppenwolf having a $300 million reward on one of the signs on the side of the building billboards. Yeah. I love Foxway being a nod to Gardner Fox and, his rich history with, these characters. I love that we see things like Ted Grant and his fight posters, Tyler Kem for Rex Tyler and Our Man. If I'm assuming they're going to do an Our Man in this world, just little nods to that. Terry Sloan being brought in. Do you know who Terry Sloan is?
No, I did not.
The original Mr. Terrific.
Oh, okay.
So it's Mr. Terrific facing off with Mr. Terrific, who it looks to me, and I mean, could be making an assumption here that Terry Sloan is going to be a Lex Luthor type of villain in this world. I don't know. Or if he feels that Mr. Terrific coming over with his intelligence here might be a threat to this world, and he's trying to stop that threat. I don't know what's going to happen with these two characters. It's going to be very interesting to see what their relationship turns out to be. It's not off to a strong start, though. No. But I love that it was Terrific versus Terrific.
Now, here's something I wonder. Again, you're talking about just the signage. They have that one newspaper stand that's the All-Star Shop. Mm-hmm. Didn't they used to call these guys the All-Star? Wasn't there something with All-Star or something like that?
All-Star Squadron, All-Star Comics, different things like that. Okay. So, yeah, that's a nod to the history as well. So they're doing a lot of that, and I really like that because it's just setting a mood, a tone, and an atmosphere, which I think we all need. Those of us that are saying, okay, you're showing us all this new, are you going to connect it to the old for us and make us feel like we're part of that? I think they're doing a great job of that. I loved the whole thing with Jay Garrick being given the speed of the god and seeing like him discover his powers along the way and learning how to run and jumping over the building and just along the way different mistakes he's making, like when he digs holes, huge holes in the ground by stopping, running up the side of the building not realizing that he could do it, but that sense of wonder and that wow factor to the whole thing. I love how when he starts to run that his powers will have the suit start forming around him. I like in the New 52 just the different way of heroes changing into their costumes based on their power set, and showing us that. It was a neat little visual. I like these functional treads too that everybody's got. Everybody, and like all these books now, you're seeing these different sort of functional treads on their boots that are more modern. Instead of the traditional heeled boot. That I mean, growing up as a kid, everybody had those heeled boots. Yeah. Superman had them, Batman had them, everybody did, because that was the style back then. But nowadays, this is more of a modern shoe. It fits something you would see at a Foot Locker, and that's something that I think just shows that this book's and their world is moving up with the times, and yet it feels classic too. That's a real neat blending in this. The fact that I do feel like Jay has a classic look to him. He looks definitely classic superhero. And there's enough of a nod to his old costume with the helmet style of his, mask and hood, but yet his face is hidden. I like that too.
Yeah.
With the visor and everything over the eyes. I'm a big fan of that. You want the bug glass. If anything, I might want something over my mouth if I'm him.
Especially, you see the way he runs. He's having fun with this. And that was something, he was laughing. You can kind of see him laughing and having fun. I'm like, dude, you're traveling at superhuman speeds, man. You get bugs flying at it. That will not be comfortable. That will not taste good. I think I'd want, a mouth shield or something like that. Just a full face, visor.
Yeah, I love it. I love the look of him having fun, though. I loved him just testing the powers, doing the acrobatics, doing all that. Because who wouldn't do that? That's how I'm enjoying Marvel's Ultimate Spider-Man right now, the relaunch of that. And one of the things I love about it is, there's whole issues devoted to, major portions of the issues devoted towards his sense of discovery of the powers. So this was really welcome here. I really love the way that was played out. I thought that visually it looked fantastic. Smiling on his face. The JSA to me is always a bright team. They're your traditional heroes that make you smile, they make you feel good. They're your, you always talk about the dun dun dun. They're those type of heroes, and that's not lost here in modernizing them. And I think that's really, really critical. I could care less if Alan Scott's gay or not. What I want to feel is that dun 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 sense of I am a hero. out of Alan Scott. What I'm seeing out of Jay Garrick, I want to see that. And that's something that I think is really starting to work here in the initial first 2 issues. This issue especially is bringing more of that in, because now we're starting to see these heroes. I'll have you out of danger in a flash as he's scooping up the rats in the garbage cans. The visual home run here from Nicholas Scott is just mind-blowingly cool. Anytime you do Flash like this, where you have these blur effects, and you get to see in one panel, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different versions of the Flash that look very consistent in different motions and poses to show this sense of visual movement around these 2 people that are being attacked by these apoca rats, which remind me of Cybermats from Doctor Who. I love that you got these creepy little rats and stuff like that. He's not done, though. He's beating the garbage can lid shut and then moving on. Shouldn't stick around, keep moving. And that's something that I think is important, too, in this world, because I want to see in this world how are heroes perceived here.
Well, you think about with this one, especially I liked how they, because one, I got to completely agree with you on visual styling. Just full creative team just gets thumbs up, outstanding. Everything on just how the beautifulness and just the flow through, but just that little attention to detail with the fact that they couldn't completely understand him. Like, what did he say? Because he was moving so fast, but all they heard was Flash. So now he is the Flash, and I like that as something I was like, that's kind of cool. I like the fact the speed going through. The whirly, the whirliness of Flash, but people couldn't completely understand it, but they did catch the one word.
And I
thought that was a great thing. That was a great way to do it.
It's kind of like, how Superman didn't necessarily name himself, Lois Lane did in the past. I like that this is a reason for him to have the name. It makes sense. I'm a big fan of, though, I want to say it again when I get to this sequence where he's skidding to a stop. Yeah. He wouldn't know how to stop himself yet. And look at the damage he did. Anyone who owns this land kind of think he gets sued over. Begs the question, though. And, the person seeing him is a parademon. He's in Poland. And, they don't know who he is. Boy, I would love this to be Kendra. The Hawk Girl. I'm guessing who that is.
That looks like, I'm guessing that's Kendra, man.
Yeah, and I would love to see Kendra on this world. The geek out part of me would love to see Hawkman on this world. Because if they're doing the Space Cop, which I think it's what they're doing, because we're going to talk about Hawkman in a little bit. If they're doing the Space Cop Hawkman on our world, which I don't know if that's exactly what they're doing yet, but, especially with the Katar and the reference to Thanagar in that book, I would welcome on this world then doing the reincarnated versions of them and having like a Kendra on this world or, whatever direction they go. But I love that costume right out of the starting gate. I really liked. I love the headdress of it. That's something with Earth 2 so far. Boy, are they doing a great job with the costuming of these characters. I'm really, I have no issues. I'm a traditionalist. I tend to, get nitpicky about costumes. I thought the Jay Garrick thing was one where I'm going to go, I'm not going to like that. It's funny, one issue in, I really dig the costume. Love the Hawk Girl costume. They're doing a really nice job with capturing the right beats to these costumes. And that's the brand new costume for her. Yeah. And yet I really dig it. I love the knife in the boot, the crossbow kind of thing going on. I don't know. It all works.
Yeah, that crossbow does not seem like the traditional crossbow. That to me seems like a blaster, chewy crossbow, like from Chewbacca's crossbow that shoots out the energy bolts. I'm thinking we got something like that going on here. This isn't going to be just a normal crossbow or normal weaponry. I think we're kind of going to see her tweaked up a little bit.
Now, here's my question at the end. When Sam gets proposed to by Alan, I love the whole thing, talking about, hey, we've been separated all this time. We mean so much to each other. I really want to change our status quo. I want to bring us close together, not have these situations where we're divided apart. And, of course, before, he can answer the proposal, the tram they're on gets blown up. And then there's that spark of green.
Yeah.
Do you think Sam's going to be okay?
I'm thinking it's not good to be a girlfriend or a boyfriend of a Green Lantern.
Yeah.
We've seen bad stuff happen to Kyle's, girlfriend. Now we got bad stuff happening to Ellen's, boyfriend or fiance. But yeah, I don't think he's going to make it. Now, if that spark of green is the kickoff of the energy, maybe that'll save him. But I got this feeling that it ain't going to happen, that the boyfriend's dead and, Alan's going to be dealing with this, grieving with this, and possibly this could be the thing that's the birth of a Green Lantern that, pushes him to be that hero, to protect the innocent, to fight, evil and, whatnot.
I agree. This has been a really good series so far. Though it was funny how the pages, I think because we knew that was coming, because there was I hazard to use the word controversy, because I don't think this was that big of a, I think the more controversy was coming from people speculating if this was in response to Marvel doing the marriage of Northstar, which from the interviews that I've seen with James Robinson, or the comments from James Robinson I've read, it looks like this was always the intention with Alan Scott in the relaunch. And I do think it probably has more to do, and I'm just speculating on this, with Obsidian than, not being around versus a reaction to Northstar. Because Northstar's been, a gay character for quite some time. And I don't know, I think the fact that they do marriages of male and female superheroes all the time. I think it's great that they do a gay marriage in one of the comics, of a character, certainly with the longevity of Northstar. I don't know. I don't have an issue with it. I think, it's something over time. I think you can overdo the whole marriage thing. But in this case, I don't know. I think it's kind of a cool thing they did it. Again, I'm a fan of any buzz for comics that gets people to maybe take a peek. So if this got them to take a peek at Earth 2 and maybe get some new readership because it's a great book, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Now, can we talk a little bit about Savage Hawkman?
Oh, definitely. We can talk Hawkman.
Jim, I really want to talk about issue number 9 of Savage Hawkman, just because this is a change to the creative team. The writing team has changed, and the art team has changed. So we've got the plot by Rob Liefeld, the script by Liefeld and Mark Poulton, and I apologize for any name butchery there. Joe Bennett on pencils, and Art T-Bear on inks, colors by Jason Wright, who we love from Secret Six, letters by Travis Lanham. And, it's funny how this is a book. I'm a Hawkman junkie. I love Hawkman. He's second to Batman for me. He's just one of those characters that I've become psycho happy with. I've been enjoying the Hawkman series. I haven't been blown away by the Hawkman series. And I think there's just been some elements that I've been waiting for it to gradually build to. So it's not a series that's ever been on the chopping block. I've been enjoying it. It's been a good book. I got to tell you, this issue, the second I turned the page, I love Joe Bennett's visuals with Hawkman. And I think that was really important for me to kick off because I was a big fan of the Gray and Palmiotti run on Hawkman. I think it's one of my favorite runs. I think what they were doing with that book was just absolutely spectacular. And Joe Bennett's artwork was a big part of that series. So to have him back on this title and working with these characters, I think is really great. I love the dialogue. I love that we're doing more of him looking back historically and trying to find out the mystery of the Nth Metal. I think is something that was really important to me in this book. That was a part of it. I am going to say I'm not a huge fan of the whole armored costume with him. And I think I figured out what it is. I always liked the idea that Hawkman didn't need it. And I think but it's growing on me. It is one of those things that's growing on me. One of the things that's helping it grow on me, I like that there's more discussion about the fact that the change causes him pain. I don't want to see that like being the total focus of the whole thing, but that there is something, I always like that with Wolverine too.
Yeah.
How every time that Wolverine's claws pop out, it causes him pain, but they don't need to discuss that every issue. I think it's the same thing with this. I liked that reveal that this is something because it comes out of him like that. It causes him pain when he does it, and he's just because he's Hawkman, he can just deal with it. One thing that I really loved about the dialogue in this, though, this guy's being hunted. He's being attacked. And, they're making comments about him being a bird and, that they're not going to do that. A hawk is a bird of prey. A hawk hunts and kills in order to survive. Hawks are not hunted, they're the hunters. That page, I was like, oh, yes, this is what I've wanted. More of this. This book, when Gentleman Ghost came in the last run, I started to get more into this book. This issue was what I've been looking for. Like, I didn't know until I read this issue. I'm like, what's missing from Hawkman for me? What is it that's not, like, why is this book not making me jump for joy? It was a good book. This was a great issue. The team transition, I think, was something that was needed in this book. And I'm really digging what's going on here. I think the dialogue is just really terrific. It's enough of the smarts of Carter Hall balanced with just the really bad kick-butt Hawkman that I really like. This is really good. I'm really digging this issue.
It's always fun whenever we do Hawkman because I just sit back and let you go because you're just going to...
But then the other page that really, really got me, and you're right, I'm just going to keep going, because this is the part that I'm like, here's the other thing that's been missing. I was trying to find this woman somewhere in there to the point where I was making that girl that he's been hanging out with. I'm like, maybe she'll become Hawkwoman, which I would be fine with. I just need that. Hawkman needs Hawkwoman, Hawkgirl, Hawk whatever. And this situation where he's being contacted, I love when they do a mystery like this with Hawkman and Hawkwoman. Shire is calling to him, Kadar, Thanagar. He doesn't know what's going on. I know the Zero issue down the road is supposed to focus on like how he got to Earth from Thanagar, what the relationship there is. I'm glad it's a mystery. Let's unfold it. But I needed this. It was funny how that, and I'm not knocking anything else in the book. I'm just picking a couple pages for me that I'm just like, yes, yes, yes. Finally, we're heading in these directions. These are some. It's 9 issues in. This is making me feel like, wow, I'm really glad I've been sticking with this title, because now I'm getting these moments that I really, as a Hawkman fan, like these are things that are important parts of Hawkman. I don't care that they're relaunching, rebooting him, what level they're doing that on. I don't care about any of that. I just need certain essential elements that are definitely Hawkman. She is one of them. She has to be there. And I'm glad that they're getting to that. It's worth the wait. Little teaser like that, I don't care when they get to it now. They showed me that, hey, we're going to do this. And that's all I need. You know, I mean, it's funny how that's a great thing from the creative team to throw in there. Like, hey, Hawk fans, this is what you're looking for. Really, really important. As I near home, I can't shake the image of the beautiful woman in my helmet's transmissions. Who is she? How is she communicating through the nth metal? The mysteries are piling up, from the ancient glyphs to Morphicus, or whatever, how you ever pronounce it, claims, and today's hunters. Just another unanswered question staring me in the face. And I like those mysteries. Like, I'm like, okay, I'm getting into the mysteries now because the right mysteries are being presented. This is getting really good. Let me ask you this, though. Are you noticing a difference, like, between the first 8 issues and now what's happening with issue 9? Has it kicked up a notch, or is it just me?
I would actually say, for me, it's been just as a nice constant build going on. Yeah, this is kind of now starting a little bit more of a progression, a little bit more. There was some really cool action sequences throughout this, which was something that I think there was I was missing. I really wanted to see a butt kicking Hawkman, and we were getting some cool fight sequences. And I'm not knocking anything that came before this, but this right here is really a hardcore throwdown, Hawkman. This is that tank that I was like, yeah, he's pretty cool. He's bad. He's tough here. And I got those moments. And it was funny. This was the first time I really started liking the axe, because I always liked that mace. I always liked just the bashing people. And, it was always something I was like, I don't know about the axe. I don't know if I'm feeling the axe for him. But really with this one, just seeing him wielding it, throwing it on a couple, taking down people, just, it was just a boom, 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 hitting hard. Again, great art, team telling a physical story. This is, I'm seeing the movie play out in my head. I'm hearing the explosions. I'm hearing the oof sound as these guys are getting bashed. And then as they self-destruct and explode, I got, you kind of get that whole, vibe. And those some really cool, everything you're saying about the story and the mystery and the unknown, I'm agreeing with you. But as that's unlaying it, we get this beautiful stuff, this great physical battle, this great physical presence, as kind of the forefront to that backdrop. This was a really cool usage of the team, really cool usage of just what's come before it. It hasn't pushed aside or forgotten everything. This is a build on that. This feels like a natural progression to the stuff we read before. And considering this is a completely new creative team, that's a really hats off on my book that they can take everything that goes through. It seems like this is where the previous creators intended the story to go, and that was something I really appreciated with the change.
Now, they were trying to capture Emma, is that correct? Because they said, get the girl, I'll take care of him.
Yeah.
So, because we didn't see what they did with Emma, right?
Well, they kidnapped her, and she's the bait or the tool to keep him calm. That's the way for them to. I'm assuming they're going to use her as a. They capture him. This is him not. He's not going to escape because they have her.
Right.
What are you going to do? Escape? Then we kill the girl. It's the classic hero weakness where the protection of the innocent, and they know he cares about her because he went to her. He took it, he pulled her in as a confidant, so they know, okay, we got the connection right here. This is his weakness right here, and that was something I was really digging.
Is he using the bottom of the axe like a mace?
Yes.
Because I really like that.
Oh,
I like
God,
that, like, it's like all of the different edges of it and everything's functional. Like, that's really growing on me, too. It's funny. I really do think I had, because I really didn't like the armor at first. I think I had a brain freeze. And I'm wondering if maybe that's, like, you're mentioning that you've kind of enjoyed the progression all along. I think for me, there was things that were, I'm like, it's kind of like the problem I had with the Superman costume at first, too. But it's funny. I think it hit me more with Hawkman. I think it's because I love Hawkman. And it's one of those things where the armor, I think, just really I was having a lot of trouble with it. I'm still not 100% sold, but I'm going to tell you, I love the functional, like the talons, the claws kind of coming out of the left-hand side. I love the gloves that they have kind of like those, talon-like edges to them. There's more and more of it that I'm enjoying it, very Claw of Horus look to them.
Yeah.
I like that the one is kind of like a shield, on the left-hand side. How it's like that shielding that's over the forearm, so he can use that like a shield. So that kind of stuff, I'm digging how the one side is more like his shield side, while the right side is more of his bashing side. Yet, both can be used as offensive. I don't know. It's starting to grow on me because of the functional nature of things. Like, I'm with you with the axe. I was more looking for a straight mace. I don't know why I'm really into Hawkman having a mace. I've always liked that as a weapon tool. But, like, the axe having all these different edges that are being utilized like that, and there is a mace built into it, just kind of works for me. So that's where it's kind of growing me as well. I like this Xerxes, or whatever. If I'm mispronouncing it, that's fine. With these war games, and I could see why he'd want to. I guess he wants to capture Hawkman to potentially, I guess, use it, because it could be one of our potential buyers. Is it that they're trying to buy these to be like their soldiers of fortune or something?
I was thinking more of a
betting?
Selling. They want to strip the nth metal from Hawkman. Or maybe they have a way to strip it from him. And right here, they're going to show, okay, this is what nth metal can do. You put it on one of your guys, you put it on yourself, you do something. This is the kind of weapon you can become. And that's how I'm reading this whole process. And I think that's where the girl's going to come into play. After Hawkman beats the holy crud out of all these guys, he's going to be like, why should I listen to you? Well, remember her? You don't listen to us. We torture her and kill her. One of the two of you is going into the stripping device. Either her, because she doesn't have an nth metal, it'll just rip her flesh from her bones, or it's you where we take the nth metal. I think that's going to be, where she comes in and where she plays out. And again, it's another book where I'm sitting there thinking and looking at the future, trying to figure out where this is going to go. And while I was reading Hawkman, I was like, yeah, it was kind of cool. I was enjoying it. There was some cool Hawkman moments. I really wasn't thinking that far to the future, and I wasn't, but with this stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, we got some interesting stuff going on here, and I'm kind of getting pulled more into it.
This is exactly what I mean. Issue 9 was a step up for me because of that. I'm excited now. I thought everything beforehand has been good. I thought this issue was great. There's a huge distinction. The creative team change, I love that they didn't throw anything out the window. I don't know if that's editorial or how they handed that off that way, but I thought it was really well handled, the transition from creative teams, because it's, as a reader, I've been reading the 8 issues beforehand. I want to feel like this has flowed from all that. But I love that they put the right beats in there. They really know the character. There's a lot of research. And these are obviously writers right now who understand the character and what makes for great Hawkman. The blending and balance of the intelligence with the savagery. That just works. And you're right, those action sequences were absolutely phenomenal. They had those great, 2 pages in particular just really made me go, hoorah, in a way that I've needed to in Hawkman reading. And I haven't had it yet. The artwork was stellar throughout. Really enjoyed the artwork. I'm a Joe Bennett junkie when it comes to Hawkman. I think that was a connection for me that was needed here. I'm glad they put Joe Bennett on this book because it harkens back to some of my favorite Hawkman stories. So I'm feeling a lot more connectability with this to everything I like from Hawkman. And you're right. I'm thinking more into the future from this book versus that was a good issue, and kind of walking away. I'll even say this. Hawkman's been one of the titles, when I've gotten busy because of work and stuff like that, there's sometimes a couple issues of Hawkman would come out, which for me, as a Hawkman fan, to admit that, sometimes I'd read 2 issues in a row because I didn't quite get to it yet, that says a lot. Issue 10 will not, by any stretch, sit on any pile. That will be read the first night it comes out. That's the type of book this has become again for me, and I'm thrilled with that because that's where Hawkman should be for me. I'm a fan of this guy, so that's a great testament to what issue 9 has done for me.
Yeah. And I am really looking forward to seeing what he's going to do to Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah,
just the one guy with the swords on his arms. I'm just thinking, you know what? It looks cool, and I will, but I would never want to have my weapons attached like that because you're taking your hand, the elements of your hands out of the fight. If you're holding on to a sword and something happens, you still have your hands. This dude, that's his only option. You toss something to him, he ain't going to be able to catch it. He ain't going to be able to hold it. He's only going to be able to, kind of like flap it or, box at it or something. He's not going to be able to actually physically grab onto it and hold on to something. I always laugh when I see that because yes, I understand you're going for intimidation factor, but practicality of the fight sequence, I'm like, and I want to see Hawkman use that against him. I want to see Hawk just take both swords and jab it into the guy or, hit the chunky guy or the kind of mysterious, shadowy cloak dude. I want to see that fight because, one, I'm really getting into how this art team does play out the action. So I'm picturing in my head how this fight's going to go. Now,
those are attached to him, right? Like he's not holding those because they're too far up on the forearms, right?
Yeah, I'm assuming those are attached. That wasn't his choice. Either that wasn't his choice or he chose poorly.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Hands. What do we need? Them fingers. They're overrated. Put pointy things on the end.
And it's funny, as I say that, I do think back to the Aquaman where he had that one hook hand, which, to be honest, I thought was kind of cool. Right. So, if you have the one hand where you can still, hold your beer or, you work the remote, that's one thing. But, once you go with that 2 where you lose both hands, I think you're kind of losing something. Now, if it wasn't his choice, if this was an accident and, he's making the best of making the best of a bad situation, hey, salute, buddy. That's improvising, adapting, that's not quitting, that's not taking, the bad stuff that happens to you and moving on, but just because he's a bad guy, because he's the villain, I'm assuming he chose that. I'm not assuming that it was a tragic accident that he's working through and trying to make the best of.
What would be great to do, as a comedy bit, every issue of Hawkman, after Hawkman beats him up, they could do an extra page every issue where it's just sword hands opening things. How would sword hands open potato chips? Or, how would sword hands open a can of pop? Well, you could say he could shove a sword through it, but wouldn't the pop go everywhere? So, it's, seeing him do day-to-day mundane tasks, like opening a box of cereal and trying to eat it without, cutting himself up. Stuff like that would be really fun to see. Could be a DC short. Because they do in those DC shorts, they do like, practical usage of, the weapons of the superheroes. Well, how do you live life as an impractical supervillain?
Yeah, what happened? Yeah, how does he, because there's some stuff that, a steak, that'd probably actually be kind of neat where you just go, right there, you don't have to worry. But once you cut it, then you got to do the puncture, and then you got to eat it off the tip of the sword.
But wait, how? His helmet is covering his mouth.
Well, I'm assuming the helmet is removable. But again,
how are you going to remove it if you got those hands? I mean, this is I love this guy. You know what? It's funny. You went here with this guy who wasn't thinking this way, but now I'm endlessly fascinated by him. He might be solo title worthy.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
No, I would love to see his secret identity. Like, what do you do? Like the world's largest letter opener? I don't know. I mean,
he could be a chef. At the Asian restaurants where they chop and flip the. You
just don't want him handing you stuff.
Cutleries,
Yeah. But he would really be the person that like dices things, because you wouldn't want him serving anything, right?
Well, you know what? You cut it, you put it on, you slide it on the one blade, and you can use a knife as a serving tool.
True.
It's got to be the right stuff. It's the and you lay it out, and that I think would look kind of cool with him. Again, he couldn't have the mask on. He hopefully he has a face underneath that, because I think the mask would be a little bit too freaky at a restaurant. But the sword, you can, it's I think he can make it work.
Yeah, I don't. The mask wouldn't work either. That's true. But again, I don't know how he gets it off.
Well, he gets with a little help from his friends.
That's true. Except none of his friends look like they'd be like too helpful.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the big guy.
Going back to your whole cooking thing, it looks like he cooks for the big guy. So
there you go.
Yeah. Bizarre tangent. I do want to say I really, really enjoyed this issue of Hawkman. I'm glad that I feel like this is something I've been longing for. I love the capture of him. The capture of him I thought was very well handled.
Yeah. It didn't take away anything from him.
Right.
Because it took a lot to get him down. And to be honest, it wasn't a complete capture, more of okay, we caught you off guard.
Yeah. Good stuff.
He is called Hawkman. His gauntlets possess awesome powers.
Jim, I want to talk about Batman issue number 10. We've been doing a lot of Batman coverage lately, but I don't know. I mean, the Bat books to me have just been absolutely stellar. It's funny, we were talking about on the show Facebook page, somebody made mention about how they really like the buzz that's been generated from the New 52, and they feel it's been positive. But one of the things that came up in the discussion is the time compression, which, and there was discussion in there about whether it's working or whether it's not. And I think the two areas where it becomes a little bit of a conundrum would be like Batman's time frame being smashed into 5 years and the Green Lantern time frame being smashed into that kind of time frame. Batman operating maybe a little bit long. Obviously, we know he was operating a little bit longer than Superman because he was like an urban legend. But still, that's a lot of stuff to compress into that time frame. But it's funny, if you take... Because I don't really think a whole lot about the timelines when I'm reading Batman, because so much cool stuff is happening in the Bat books that I just really don't focus on that a lot. But I agree with it. I do think that's an issue with the Robins in particular. When they were talking about, like, okay, this many Robins occurred in that time frame, I agree with that. I get the point. Does that bother you, though, with that? I think that's one of the areas where I think they kind of pin themselves into a corner with... I think they almost, with Batman, should have been more vague in his timeline than defining it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm definitely of the camp that they probably should have just left it with Batman. They should have just left things a little bit unknown, and just have have this period where Batman's operating more than 5 years, but he was an urban legend. No one actually believed that there was this guy dressed up in a costume doing the Batman stuff until they started seeing Superman. Then the other heroes started coming out and started making their presence known. And that's when people started saying, wow, there really is a Batman. Because you think about the Justice League, that issue 1, where when Hal first meets him, like, wow, you really do exist. And, there was that unknown factor to him. And for me, they should have had a couple years of the urban legend Batman out there before Superman.
I like the urban legend concept because then you could argue then saying, well, there's all kinds of urban legend stories that may or may not be connected to Batman, from history, saying, and that's why nobody can really pin down when Batman actually started, because when was, this is the first year where we have real known definitive sightings of Batman, but outside of that, it's very vague when he actually began. And that's a good way, I think, to handle his storyline and his continuity. And just leave that open-ended, because he is an urban legend. So why not play off of that? And I think that's one of the areas. Otherwise, though, the whole 5 years, let me ask you this, taking Batman out of the equation, and maybe Green Lantern, but I don't know that I feel as strongly about it in Green Lantern as I do in Batman. Aside from that, does this whole 5-year reboot, does that part bother you at all? Aside from those particular, I think those are the two because they were very popular and they didn't want to take out those storylines. I can't really think of anywhere else in the DC universe where that's becoming an issue, because it isn't for Justice League.
Yeah, for me, the 5-year reboot's really cool, and it works. It's, again, taking Batman and Green Lantern out of it a little bit, but I'm a little bit more flexible with Green Lantern because a lot of the big stories could have happened within a couple years of each other. There's some stuff that I don't know about the big events that happen, but a lot of the focused, especially the most recent stuff. When you look at the time frame between when the Sinestro Corps War happened and Blackest Night and all the big Green Lantern events happened, they are pretty compact and concise. Now it's the whole Parallax story with Hal and the Corps rebirth, that would, right there is where I run into a little bit of issues with, a timeline needing a little bit more room on it, because how long was Kyle the only one for a while there? Was that whole Ion thing happen? What happened? Did the Corps have to be rebuilt? That's the big question. Did, recharge ever happen, or, where is that going on? Where did that occur? So that's the only time I would say the Green Lantern has a timeline kind of bubble. But with Batman, as you said, it's the whole urban legend, and it is. The Robins are the toughest part for me. It's not taking away any of my enjoyment of the books. I'm reading it, I'm loving it. I'm like, hey, this is fun, this is cool. But if I stop and sit and just thought about it and really just kind of let the meticulous mindset, that little quirkiness of me that goes off on these little tangents on one issue, it probably would bother me. But I'm sitting back and I'm enjoying the story. I'm getting some good stuff. And the fact that they've had so many Robins in such a short period of time, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a little bit tough to pull off. But you know what? In my mindset, Damian really just became a Robin just recently. So it's not like Damian they have to account for a long time with Damian. And, the whole thing with, how long was, I kind of see Dick as being a Robin during the urban legend times, not completely up and out in the open, and just the whole hero side of it, the post-Superman stuff. I kind of see Dick Grayson involved with the Bat family, involved with Bruce and helping Bruce out before that. So Jason Todd is a couple years, and then Tim Drake, and then just the current boom DCU that's out now 5 years later. That's the introduction of Damian into the role of Robin. So I kind of can piece some stuff, and I can kind of make it fit if I don't give Dick Grayson. Well, if I don't give Jason Todd that long of a run as Robin, I can kind of fit him in.
Can I ask you this?
Yeah.
Do you recall a story that has indicated how long Batman's been operating since the New 52 started? Because I don't remember reading anything in print. The only thing I've heard about Batman's operating has been speculated on, I think, by creative at conventions. But I've never seen anything in print. Have you?
I'm trying to think, and I think the only stuff I remember is the Justice League stuff, and maybe with some of the World's Finest.
But
when they were doing their timeline, I thought they mentioned this world's Batman.
But I mean, they didn't tell how long he's been operating.
Right. Well, they wouldn't know how long he's been operating because they got to our world at the 5-year mark.
No, I guess you're validating my point. I guess what I'm saying is there's still a storytelling opportunity to maybe expand that Batman's been operating just a bit longer than everybody else.
Oh, definitely.
and to correct that problem, I think. Because I think it's a small issue to easily be corrected by saying Batman's been operating longer than everybody. and just kind of leave that number vague. I think pinning it down is a mistake when you're saying we're trying to leave this open-ended so, certain Batman stories can be plugged in and still used. Well, fine. Say Batman's been operating longer than, people realize. And, he's been an urban legend and nobody can really pin down how long he's been operating. And I don't know why that needs to be pinned down and defined. I think it's better to leave that open and let fans speculate on the urban legend. Leave him an urban legend. Leave him that way in this new 52, and that fixes the whole problem. Saying nobody can pin that down and just don't have Alfred and Bruce discuss it. Don't put a number to it. Let us as fans kind of do that on our own. I don't know. I think that's the easiest way. I think with him being an urban legend, you're a little bit better leaving him vague than you would be a Superman who's more in the public eye. Yeah, Batman wouldn't have been.
Yeah, Soup has the definite timeline. It's definitely locked down. Bruce, let's keep it open a little bit. Let's keep it a little vague. It adds to who he is and what he's been doing. It's kind of you think about it, this normal person doing what he does is a little bit far-fetched anyway, so let's have a little bit more leeway. Let's have a little bit more off-kill with it. And even some of these great Batman stories that happened, who knows, maybe it's been shifted a little bit so it's not so public. So the adventures going on in the dark, seedy parts of Gotham that people don't go, people don't look to, and they don't want to know about. There's parts of Gotham that murder, killing, all sorts of nasty stuff happen that probably doesn't get reported on the news because it's coming from that area. Those are the kind of places where the urban legend, the Batman, was operating initially. He was in the darkest parts of Gotham, hitting them hard, hitting them fast, making his presence known there because that was the worst areas. That's where you needed to strike initially.
I love the cover of Batman 10 with the owl wings in the shadow behind him.
Yeah.
Like his shadow being that. Very foreboding to the reveal. And let's jump to the reveal and then we'll talk about the other cool things in the issue because I think we just might as well get that out of the way. The last Talon, or the last member, who I'm guessing is the guy that we saw in certain issues, the one who's still been around all this time, Thomas Wayne Jr.
Yeah. I'm
guessing if he's the one that maybe was that one guy that we saw keep reappearing in some of the issues, that would be who the character was. But I love that's the reveal that we've been seeing him all along in Gotham's government. He was right out in the open in Bruce's face. Bruce was actually interacting with him. And I love that.
Oh, yeah. It was something that kind of threw me initially for a loop. And I'm like, what? Wait a minute. How can Bruce not know about his brother? How could Alfred not have told Bruce about his brother? And those are the kind of questions that I do wonder if this guy is just crazy, if he's just a loon and doesn't realize he's not actually, or is he actually? And if he actually is a Wayne, if he actually is Thomas Wayne Jr., well, what about Alfred? Why didn't Alfred tell Bruce, or did Alfred not know?
The backup story totally verifies what happened on Lincoln in March, why Alfred wasn't the butler at the time. Jarvis was. And I'm guessing we're going to find out next issue, in part 3 of The Fall of the House of Wayne, Jarvis isn't going to survive. So he was not able to tell, and Martha and Thomas kept this a secret. So Bruce never knew, and then they died before Bruce was old enough to maybe be prepared. So I'm wondering if this is a secret that Alfred was never a part of, Bruce was never a part of, something that the parents kept secret, and they died before maybe Bruce was old enough to know about it?
Yeah.
I'm guessing part 3 of The Fall of the House of Wayne is really going to verify. Or, because, take a look what happened with the car accident. So I'm guessing this is what happened to the kid in the car accident.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they make reference because Bruce is like, my parents wouldn't put you in a madhouse, wouldn't have done this. Well, this wasn't, this wasn't the slum when they first put me here.
Right.
But when the death of the two biggest contributors happened, it went to the wayside. And the fact that the Waynes weren't around to keep this place as the premium place to put the children to for medicine, for care, and all that. Once that went away, guess what? This has kind of turned a little bit twisted, and it's kind of fitting seeing Gotham because the way Gotham is, there is a darkness, there is a sickness that comes from Gotham, and part of some of the coolest Batman stories do reflect the fact that the city will take you and eat you up. The city will spit you out if you're not strong enough to survive in Gotham, and we kind of see what happened here, where Tom didn't have that strength, didn't have that backing, didn't have that support structure. He instead had the owls. He instead had this little sick, twisted hospital. And it's I kind of like this, and I really do hope this is Thomas Wayne Jr.
Yeah, I like that. It seems like they're not well, I think it totally is. I like that they're not retconning what happened with the death of the parents. The parents did die. And I love how he's come back saying that was totally your doing.
Yeah.
Which was something that, it goes back to Bruce's own issues with it, that he had that fear, then went outside of the theater, and that's what led to their deaths. I'm glad that that's still in play. But I'm totally convinced this is, in fact, Thomas Wayne Jr., and that he was responsible for the death of the court, right?
Well, he took out all the ones he could. Now, because it was Thomas calling them to a meeting, he got some of the high-ranking people. I can only imagine that there are some left, but I don't know. It's last time we talked to the Court of Owls, I was like, oh, there's no way Bruce is going to be able to get to them all. Well, Bruce didn't get to them all. It was one of their own who turned on him. So maybe we got a pretty good hit to the court. This may take out the court. There may be some lower-level people who will try to use this as a power play and say, hey, I got some knowledge about the court. I know where some of our secret holdings are, some of our secret stash. So maybe we may see like a return of the court, but it's not going to be the established, ruling parties. It's going to be lower level people trying to assume power, which will actually give Bruce a better chance at dealing with them.
Here's my question. Thomas, with the look on his face and everything, or Lincoln March, who formerly was Lincoln March,
yeah,
he's gone through what the Talons did, right?
Yeah, that's how he survived the Talon shooting him. He took the formula, the whatever it is that makes them survive, he took it knowing he was going to get killed by the Talon, so that way he could come back after he died. He planned this all along to die and come back.
Now, I'm going to be curious if they call him Owlman or Talon, because I know there's a Talon series coming. And I wonder if maybe the label of Talon was a code name. Because one of our friends from the show was mentioning this on Twitter. And I didn't realize they were going in this direction at the time I had read the issue yet. But this is really great, because I have no issue if they call him Talon or Owlman, whatever direction they go with him. I actually kind of like the name Talon. It kind of gives it its own unique, but it certainly is. This is who Owlman was. And to bring him onto our Earth as a nemesis for Batman is really a great way to bring in a new character. Now, I wonder if it's going to be a villain book.
Yeah, see, when they first said Talon, I was thinking that it was going to be some of the surviving Talons, or maybe they're going to take like one or two in particular and actually follow that person's story, and maybe there's a redemption of it. I wasn't thinking Thomas Wayne until I read the issue. Once I read this, I was like, I wonder what they're going to do here, because I was originally thinking it wasn't going to be a villain book. It was going to be a Talon who maybe redeemed themselves, or I didn't know where it was going to go with it.
Well, and you could be right about that still. The book doesn't have to be Thomas,
right?
So I don't know. I guess I was assuming after the reveal of Thomas, I'm like, oh, they're probably going to do a book about Thomas, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. He could still become a part of Batman's rogues. And it be actually about a Talon who's doing what you said, redeeming themselves. Because there's certainly Talons in this that you could argue would potentially head down that path And, maybe there's one that hasn't been fully explored yet who they might be focusing on, too. So I don't know. I would be fine with either option. I don't know which I prefer. I don't know if I prefer it to be Thomas or to be one of the other Talons, because I just think the whole story's been so interesting that I don't know that I care either way which direction they go.
Yeah, see, I'm still leaning towards I'd like to see a Talon that we don't know about yet. Mm-hmm. But if it turns out it's Thomas, I'll be like, oh, okay. I'm not going to knock it until I've read, like the first story arc and, actually see what it happens and where they go with this. But I'm just thinking we're going to see Bruce really just lay a beating on this guy. And, once that happens, I can't see them taking it and continuing on the story and, just having it. I'm seeing this is going to be the end of Thomas Wayne Jr., as far as Bruce will take it. We're not going to see the death of him, but he kind of already is dead. So he's now fighting the animated corpse. So it's, how far will Bruce take it, against somebody who's possibly desecrating his family's name, legacy, and, I don't know. There's a lot of questions where how will Bruce take this to the kill? Will Bruce take this over the edge? But is he actually killing, this guy?
You freeze him like a wedding cake.
Yeah.
That's what you do. Then you bring him out every so often for the anniversary.
Yeah.
Maybe the anniversary of his parents' death, you bring out Thomas and, hang him out. I don't know. What do you do?
Hey, Tommy boy.
Tommy, hey, good to see you again, buddy. I've been a little too long. Let's put Tommy back in the fridge.
Okay, where's the Mr. Freeze gun?
Yeah. Hey, some siblings, that would be a fantasy. Where's your brother? On ice.
Where's your brother? Oh, he's in the freezer. Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, we'll bring him out later, maybe. I don't know. It's kind of quiet now, right? Isn't that nice? This has been a terrific... first of all, I didn't see that coming in a million years. I loved where the Lincoln March name comes from. It's from the corner of Lincoln and March where the accident actually happened.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that he used that accident which changed his life as a pivotal focal point there. I'm curious to see how the owl or the Talon that we see in the issue plays into the ultimate direction that Thomas Wayne Jr. goes in. This is a great use of backup stories, because it just continues further progressing this great storyline. I loved the hunting of the owls that Bruce did in the beginning. We actually, the Powers family, how Bruce confronted the wife, and he was really using this as his opportunity to one-up them, but he was one-upped by the fact that Thomas had already gotten to them.
Well, for Thomas, that was a great usage, and part of me wonders how much of it was Thomas improvising off of what Bruce was doing, and how much was always his plan all along to get them together. It was a possible nice 1-2 combo, or the plan all along that they just happened to fall together.
Yeah, it's funny how this issue revealed a lot, but also left a lot of questions. And that to me is great Batman storytelling. Big shocking reveal, and you're not going like, what? Wait, where? How? It makes logical sense in a Batman world, but there's still these questions of filling in the blanks along the way. And I don't know how many, in the next issue, how many of the blanks we're going to get filled in. But wow, this is another Snyder out of the park.
Yeah, and again, it's when we talk about which Batman to read, which title, we're seeing again, Batman, the Batman title has been bam. It's this great, part of the whole story and part of the Night of Owls, and just, what is going on with Bruce. You're seeing it in Batman, and it's, yeah.
Well, you want to, as we were talking about Batman books, you want to talk a little bit about Batman and Robin number 10?
Oh, God, yes. Yes.
Because, again, it had that whole family aspect, which this book is handled, I think, perfectly well, where, it's all the Robins kind of meeting together. And with Jason as well popping up in the story because of Damian. And I really like that the Robins have a way, the former Robins have a way of getting in contact with each other. That Jason's out of the loop, but not out of the loop.
Yeah.
And that's stuff that I really enjoy. I love seeing the dog brought into the family portrait.
Yes.
And the bickering between siblings, I think it's natural between siblings to have that bickering because of differences. It actually, for as dysfunctional as this family is, they also have the same kind of quirks that I think any normal modern family has. I think it's as kids grow and as they begin to develop their own personal identities, those differences between them. I love my brother. I genuinely do. But my brother and I couldn't be more different. And I think as we've gotten older, we've come to respect those differences. But I can totally see how this family of brothers right now, especially adopted brothers, which my brother and I are, butt heads like this because of their differences. I think that's very natural to a family. I think it's different levels of severity depending on the families, and a lot of that's due to the how functional the parents are. And the dad runs around in a bat suit. So what does that say?
You talk about the bickering. You talk about just this. There's so many just normal stuff going on that I was absolutely loving. The fact that Bruce keeps changing where they're going to line up, how they're going to, let me sit, no, let me stand. And the artist is just like, dear God, not another change, because this is a painting. This is the setup. This isn't just, okay, let's rearrange it again. No, he's doing the full-on portrait, and you can just tell that artist, like, I was at a point where really? Okay, let's change it again. And I kind of felt for the guy. I felt bad for him, but it was something that just, it kind of had me chuckling, especially that moment is like, wait, we forgot one more Wayne. And he goes and grabs the dog and brings Titus in there. That was such a classic, just family portrait type moment that you forget they're all superheroes. They all dress up in costume. They all run around at night doing crazy stuff. But, this fits. And this issue didn't have a lot of high action, boom, 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 action fight sequences, but it had these great character moments that I was sitting there eating it up. It was a great story, and it was just like, oh, that's awesome. And I loved the setup for the bickering, the fight of Robins. The contest between the Robins, for me, is something I am really eagerly anticipating.
There's one other thing I want to comment on. I'm sorry, I'm jumping back to that whole family sequence again. Because when Damian and Tim were fighting, I love the moments with Dick and Bruce. And you see a Bruce right now who is getting nostalgic, getting family-oriented. I think Damian's bringing this out in him, where he's kind of seeing the need to memorialize his families and memorialize their time together. It was that movie night moment that we saw in that previous issue where they did that, which you and I geeked out over. And I loved Dick's reference to that. Guess no movie night now. But there's that familiarity between Bruce and Dick showing that they're at a different level of maturity than Tim and Damian. Really worked for me.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of hierarchy is very natural to a family as well.
Well, I like the fact that Bruce still can do the goon arm to both Damian and Tim. He kind of does that little neck pinch on both of them. And it's still, this is, Red Robin, this is Damian. These are accomplished heroes on themselves. But the fact that Bruce is still able to hit that nerve pinch just right, and you get the kind of moments where he's like, okay, calm down now. That, for me, was another family moment.
I love the fight of the Robins, or at least the prelude to the fight of the Robins. Yes. And I love that Damian's need to validate himself as a member of the family and his role as a member of the family is really important to him. Because Damian's this kid, he's very young, he didn't belong. He's kind of been the square peg in the round hole, because these guys have all been there. Even Jason, to a certain extent, has had more time with his father than he has. So I love this need for this kid to like, hey, I need to feel like I'm a part of this. I need to feel like this is a part of my life. And that motivational drive is something that's needed here. And when Bruce and Alfred are talking about the secrets Bruce has been keeping from the other Robins, I don't think there's anything wrong with Bruce not telling them about this. I love his reasons for not telling them about nobody, being the protective father, and just recognizing that, this is something that right now with their relationships, it's not a good time to do that, because it would lead to more, he was talking about how it's divisive. He's right. I think it would be even worse for the group if Tim knew about that and he was throwing it in Damian's face. It could lead to irreparable damage when he's trying to bring them closer together.
It's funny because I do agree with you that I think that Bruce, did the right call by not telling him. But as I say that, I'm still thinking that Tim's going to find out. Tim's going to figure it out, and Tim will be more upset with Bruce than with Damian. He'll say, yeah, Damian's a killer. Okay, fine. But you should not. You should have trusted me. You should have known. Or Dick's going to find out about it. And Dick will have that same kind of, resentment towards Bruce. One of those two is going to find the truth. And they're going to find out and say, hey, I understand why you did it, but you shouldn't have done it. You should have trusted me enough to know that.
And here's his justification. And I'll defend Bruce on this one. First of all, if he told Tim's behavior has already shown Bruce that Tim is already throwing in Damian's face previous incidences. So why would he give him more ammo? He's throwing Damian under the bus at this point. Tim has proven that he's not ready to handle that. The relationship needs to be stronger between Tim and Damian. They need to understand each other more before that can happen. Now, with Dick Grayson, here's the problem. Do I put Dick in the position where he has to now keep this secret from Tim? After I've already told Damian it's going to be our secret. So I'm putting Dick in a position where he knows a secret that he cannot tell Tim, who's like a brother to him. Do I put him in? And he
can't tell Damian that he knows as well.
Right. Do I put him in that place? Is that a fair position to put him in? He's in a no-win scenario with Dick Grayson. If he tells him, it's bad. If he doesn't tell him, it's bad. There's a no-win on that one. I get it. Alfred was the safest one to tell because Alfred's a check and balance. And Alfred's already keeping so many secrets from everybody anyway. But it's also the hierarchy of the relationship. Alfred's Bruce's father figure. So he's playing devil's advocate as they're having this exchange in the Batcave about whether or not he should tell. Is it the right thing to not tell? And I love that it's a question because everything you're saying is true and they're running through their heads as well. Yeah. So there's and my point when I wasn't disputing what you were saying, more so as saying, but here's the other side of it. And I think he's in a catch-22. And I think that conversation with Alfred is showing very much the catch-22 that he's in. And I like that because it's natural. It's not clean. It's still, everything you said is still on the table. Everything I said is still on the table. And the end result is this is just the status quo and this is what we have to do with it.
Yeah, he's in his Kobayashi Maru. He's in his no-win situation. He's just got to pick the best way to do it. And to be honest, he's kind of altering the parameters. He's making his own way through it, and he's forcing, kind of his own solution to it. Now, it's as anything else, it could come back and haunt him. And part of me thinks that we're going to see that. But to be honest with you, there's part of me that says maybe they're not going to go that way because that is such an obvious way this could go. Maybe they're going to play this out where eventually we get a relationship between Red Robin and Robin that Bruce is able to share. Or it's to the point where Damian's able to share it with Tim. Because that's where the truth has to come out. Yeah. It has to be a point when Damian is comfortable enough with Tim Drake to tell him, hey, I did this. This is what happened. And I think if we ever see that moment, which when I say see that moment happen, I don't know if it ever will within the next 5 years because the way these two kids are going, I don't see it happening, but you never know. It could come through this. There could be a connection between the two of them. And actually this issue is the beginning of a connection between them, which I think is kind of interesting that Tim was the first target.
Is that Damian's point here? Then you got a little angry to say the least and made sure Fist Point did some bleeding out on his own. From where I'm sitting, it looks to me like killing could be your specialty. Is Damian, in his own way, trying to find a point of commonality between them? To try and show them, stop judging me. You're like me. I'm like you. Is Damian, in his own twisted way, because he knows no other way of doing it, trying to show he belongs? Instead of him being the dysfunctional Robin. I don't know.
Right. There's something that the Jason Todd stuff, which actually there was a couple really cool moments that I digged. One was when they're talking about the portrait. He goes, family portrait. I guess my invitation got lost in the mail. I love the fact that Jason makes that little comment because, it does dig at him a little bit. It does hurt him. But he won't come out and flat out say it. He's going to use this sarcasm. He's going to use this kind of cover to mask the pain. But he does wish he was invited to do the portrait. He does wish he was part of the Bruce's family again. But it's nothing he'll actually publicly admit. And that's something I really liked in that one little quick sequence. And the other one, I thought it was kind of funny. Again, funny banter, where they're talking about, where Tim goes, that kid is wired way too tight. Remind you of someone. Shut up, Nightwing. Just that little banter between those three, again, was another funny moment for me.
Here's the thing, and I wanted to comment on this because you were mentioning Jason before. I don't think not only will Jason not admit it to them, he won't admit it to himself. Jason's not sitting there saying, I want to be back part of the family.
Right.
He's not saying it to himself either.
Yeah, and it's funny when, I think it was a couple weeks ago when we had that discussion about would Bruce bring Jason back into the fold? And to be honest with you, my answer is going to be different than what I said last time. Because last time I was like, I don't know, it's questionable. Would he put risk Damian further turning? I think now, when all this is said and done, when Damian does his little fight between him and Jason, and who knows how that comes out, there's a pretty good chance that if Jason were to go up to Bruce and say, hey, help me, Bruce would. He'd flat out help him and bring him back into the fold. There is, and I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm just saying that, but it's funny just seeing all of these four Robins interacting just got me thinking again that especially the way Bruce is being very protective of Damian, I think if Jason asked for help, Bruce would help him. Bruce would reach out and bring him back into the fold and try to try to have him leave a more productive life.
Yeah, it would have to be the right set of circumstances. Like you said, you'd have to believe that Jason really wants to go the straight and narrow and become part of the team again. And I'd love that if that happens. So I don't know. It's an interesting situation. It's funny how we talk about this book and how much we're both loving it. I think one of the things that I'm really digging about all of the Batman titles right now is each one of them has a different focus. Like, this consistently is the focus of his relationship. Obviously, with Damian is one of the big focuses of this. But it seems to be, we have these special issues where it's his relationship with the whole Batman universe. And I love that this book reflects things that are going on, because there was reference to the price on Damian's head and the assassins from Batman Inc. So we're seeing a link now. When does Batman Inc. take place? Right now. Batman Inc. #1, those events are happening right now. And these are books that are linked. These things are happening. You don't have to overdo it. Quick little reference, but it gives us a frame point of, okay, these events are happening right now. I really like that. It's something that's really well handled. Can we talk a little bit about Batman Inc. #1?
Oh, sure.
Because we haven't really discussed that. Just kind of casually, like we've been discussing right now. Because it's funny, we made some comments where we were on the last episode where we were asked about, which Batman books we'd recommend and stuff like that. And I really want to make it clear how much I'm really loving and adoring Batman Inc. It's funny how Batman and Robin, Batman Inc. Are really. Then I say that and I'm like, well, I love what Tony Daniel's doing over in Detective Comics. The Batman books are really enjoying this just amazing time. And I love that Batman Inc. made reference to events that are happening in the other titles. Nobody was referenced in this particular issue.
Yes.
So these events that are happening in the other books that find attention to detail is just something I think that's really tight in the Batman universe right now. For as much stuff is going on, you feel like these things could all be happening.
And some of the stuff that happened in the Leviathan one-shot, which was the prior Flashpoint universe, has crossed over into this, and they were able to actually make it a connection, because a couple of the Batmen from Batman Inc. died in that one-shot. Well, one of them was Batwing. Well, guess what? They made it look like, no, he didn't actually die. They faked his death so that they can be, slip in under the radar. So right there, you're like, oh, okay, cool. They're making the connection. They're making it, present day, and they're not losing anything that happened in the one shot is still going on in this universe. And here's why it's okay. And that was something for me that I really liked seeing. And I was glad that it just, because it didn't have to do, retcon, forget that those people died. Let's just keep going forward. No, they're explaining why it looked like they died.
Now here's the question. In a move that the Element Man perfected back in his Justice League days. So Metamorpho was part of Justice League?
Apparently. I guess he's on one of the squads because, we're seeing right now the early days of the Justice League. We're seeing, just a Justice League that kind of, they talked about hasn't really had a major loss until the current story arc that they're going through. This is going to be the major loss for the Justice League. So there's going to be some transition of other members in the team. My guess is after the team takes a hit, that we're going to get a kind of a Justice League International,
but Jim,
a Detroit League type of style.
But I get the current story in Justice League. Are we taking that takes place in present day or in the past still?
I thought it took place in the past. Not as far back past as the first meetings, but it's not 5 years later, I thought.
Because I thought with the Green Arrow issue, that took place modern day. That was, modern day, current Green Arrow. Because
I thought, because in the Green Arrow modern story, he mentions, they mentioned friends with the Justice League as if it had happened a little while ago. So, and I think that was like Green Arrow 2 or 3. So if 2 or 3, he's talking a while ago, so that means that current issue happened before issue 1.
So we haven't quite hit modern or present day with the Justice League is what you're saying.
That's how I'm reading it. Now, if I'm wrong, and someone please feel free to correct me and tell me where I'm wrong, but I think it's the team's been around for a little bit, but they haven't had it's not a 5-year team.
Okay. So we're seeing some storylines. Okay, I like that. If that's the case, that makes a lot more sense to me. And it would explain how like a Metamorpho could have been a bit player or a friend helping the team.
Yeah, or I'm thinking we could see a Detroit League or one of the other Justice League, team ups, not the big 7. After what happens in this current story arc, a couple of them go their own separate ways.
I like the whole killer hunting down Damian and what happened to his buddy and how he spent his time studying Batman's night habits, knowing where he would be. I like that whole inner dialogue of him, like why he is a more successful assassin than the other ones, because he's focused his entire time on studying this.
Yeah.
I loved also the Bat Cow.
I tell you, it's, again, little funny moments, but that killer, that was something I really dig because, we talk about just, you need an intelligent villain to, push the team, to test the team, to test their merit. So, if you're dealing with someone who's going to have a viable chance to taking out any member of the Bat family, any type of Bat or anyone trained by the Bat, you're going to need someone who's an A game. It's not going to be just some guy who gets a lucky shot in there. It's going to be a precision, accomplished assassin. And I like seeing that type of villain go up against Batman because he needs that level of, competition.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's something that, especially we're bringing back in the Man-Bats from Morrison's run. So, we're seeing now that most of Morrison's run happened, to Batman. And that's something that's really great. And I like whole Leviathan thing, bringing Talia in, her hunting down her son, why she's doing it. Bat Cow I loved because, here's why I loved Bat Cow. Yeah, it was a comedy moment, but it also reminds us that Damian's a kid.
Yeah.
The dog in Batman and Robin reminds us that Damian's a kid. There's those moments where we need to remember that is who Damian is, and he takes a look at the Demon Star, and with his own, being that demon seed, where he was being groomed to be a part of all that. Looking at the cow, I could see him almost connecting this animal to what he went through.
Yeah.
And saying, wait a minute, this thing's got this demon brand on it, and, this cow's going to be something different. He's going to be the bad cow, something more. I'm a vegetarian now, and this is the way things go. I love that. That's a kid connecting with an animal. And every so often, we do need to be reminded that Damian's a kid. And I think what's going on in Batman and Robin and this book connected with each other so well I really enjoyed that.
Well, every so often, Damien needs to remember that he's a kid.
I don't think he doesn't understand what it means to be a kid, Jim. He never, and he has no reference point.
And that's something that I was hoping if there had been more time with him and Nightwing. Because he had that, where Nightwing wanted him to be in the Teen Titans, and Nightwing wanted him to kind of experience this stuff and just try to have him be a kid. He doesn't play. He doesn't know how to play. He doesn't know how to have fun. He knows how to train. He knows how to kill. He knows how to fight. He knows how to do all that. But he doesn't just sit back and laugh or enjoy himself or do, something goofy. That's why that movie night was so important. And even Bruce's portrait is so important. He needs normal stuff in his life.
That didn't happen, though, the Teen Titans thing.
Right. Yeah, I know. But I'm saying that was something that I miss. I wish we would get more of that. That was something that, with the Flashpoint, the relaunch, I'm enjoying. And I think this is cool. And I'm loving where we're getting Damien. But there is some stuff that I wish we could have gotten. There's some stuff that I wish we could still, we still could have somehow saved.
But see, one of the things I like right now is we're seeing this gradual progression of Damien. I think what's going on in Batman and Robin is so cool because he's not there yet. And I like that they're not instantly dropping him into, wow, look, Damien's balanced now. With his upbringing, he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to see slow little glimpses at that journey, and we can go on that journey with him. And I think that's something where, okay, we compressed a lot of continuity. Now let's take some time and really explore this stuff. And this is exactly something right now that we want to explore and go along on the ride. Instead of worrying about like where the past fits, like right now I'm very interested in seeing where Damien goes. And this is where I think like the back books are top notch right now. I'm really heavily focused on where this goes, not where it's been. And I think that's really important in Batman storytelling. Not saying that I don't care about the past. I do care about Batman's past. I've grown up with this stuff. And I obviously would love everything to be tied up in a nice, neat, tight bow, but it's never been. Yeah. There's been so much Batman story that's contradicted each other as it's gone through the years, and continuity shifted and stuff like that. Is Kathy Kane alive? Is Kathy Kane not alive? She was kind of fit back into Batman Inc. After she'd no longer been in continuity for the longest period of time. How does Betty Kane fit into all this? Because she was originally the original Batgirl, but she's not the original Batgirl. That kind of stuff. There's a lot of contradiction, or not contradiction, or reworking of Batman's continuity. That's not abnormal for Batman when the character's been around with this much longevity, or Superman for that matter. I think out of the two right now, Superman's enjoying a much neater bow as far as how that all fits in. But I'm not really bothered by that because the end result is I like the idea of the vague urban legend, and I hope they focus more on that, where let's not try to pin down years. Let's just say that, Dick Grayson was Robin a certain amount of time, then he became Nightwing. Those type of things need to happen in Batman storytelling. Jason Todd was Robin, and then he's no longer Robin. And he was resurrected. I know we're going to find out how that happened in the Zero issue of Red Hood and the Outlaws. Like how he came back to life in the New 52. Yeah. So I think that might clear up a lot of the timeline for him. But I think they're trying to compress a lot of Batman stuff into a short period of time. I've never seen in storytelling an exact amount of time. And if I missed it, anybody who's listening, please feel free to, in our Facebook group or email or call in, where I'm wrong. If there's a book in the New 52 that's really pinned down a date for Batman. But even in the Justice League story, I think that the focus was on that we always thought you were an urban legend. And I think they should leave that way. Keep it vague. Don't pin down a date because, when you do that, you're going to make a situation where Batman doesn't make sense. And stop telling us at conventions. I think don't try to make sense of that many years of Batman stuff. Let people figure that out on their own and leave it kind of vague. I think it works better being vague. I really do. I think, the Batman one is even more so than Green Lantern. For some reason, for Green Lantern, I don't have this. I'm digging Green Lantern. I'm saving Green Lantern chat for a specific Green Lantern episode we've got coming up. But I don't have this issue with Green Lantern as much, the time frame thing. Knowing that I think that there's some stories you can say clearly didn't happen to Green Lantern, but all the big events did. It's clear they're going to rework Guy Gardner's continuity. His introduction is coming up in, I think, Green Lantern Corps Zero.
Oh, cool.
So a lot of these Zero issues are going to tell us some of the things we've been wanting to know. So I don't know. I'm kind of into all that. It's fine that we're going to clear all that up. I think Batman, they're trying too hard to pigeon too much stuff in that doesn't need to be. I don't think you need to put a date on Batman. I think doing that is a mistake. Everybody else works, I think. Do you find that with Green Lantern? Because you've read a lot of Green Lantern in the time we've been doing the show. I mean, you read 6 years worth of Green Lantern plus in the time we've been doing the show. Plus, you've read stuff that was before we were doing the show. So do you feel like Green Lantern doesn't work as well as, like, the Robin's thing for Batman is really the thing that's not working for me. Everything else seems to be fine.
Well, as I said, there was just a couple of stuff where I'm like trying to figure out. I think Kyle, for me, is the hardest one to figure out. Because how long was he? The whole thing with him, was he the only Lantern? Did the Corps get destroyed? Did it have to get reborn? How long was that process? What about the Guardians? Were they killed off? Were they powerless? What happened to them? I think that whole part of the Green Lantern mythos is the area where I'm like, okay, what happened here? And I think that's the only time that I have, when I sit down and think about that, is when I have only a problem with the 5 years. Otherwise, I'm fine with everything, how it flowed through and what happened, and the stories with Sinestro and Hell, and just the Sinestro Corps, Blackest Night, everything that happened. I think it fits nicely within the 5 years. Just that one part that's Kyle Rayner that I have a hard, and part of I think is because I never really read a lot of Kyle, so I don't know how compact his stories were told. I don't know how if a lot of action happened in a very short period of time. If there was only like a 1 month span where he was the only Green Lantern, okay, you can fit that in easy. But if we're talking years and years and years, then I'm like, how are we compacting this? How are we tweaking this?
Well, I think Kyle, the answer was in Green Lantern: The New Guardians Part 1. If you're the first part of that issue, they showed where the Corps was completely beat down, the whole Parallax thing happened, and Kyle was chosen instead of the way it happened. So we saw that happened, but they're compressing that storyline.
Yeah, see, it's...
Because right in the first issue of New Guardians, they show Kyle selected. It's different than how it originally went down, but they're showing that that's basically how it happened.
Yeah, see, and I don't know what the original version was, so I don't know... Again, it's a lack of knowledge of the pre-Kyle. So I don't know where he came from, so I don't know how he fits in. So when I look at the current stories being told, I don't have an issue with it. Yeah, Green Lantern's not one that I would sit there and I would catch myself on. Batman, the Robin continuity, that's the only thing that really I sat down and I try to piece some stuff together, and I gotta think about it. But with the Green Lanterns, I was just flowing right from the one story into this. It felt comfortable. It felt like a nice flow through, and for me, I didn't see any issue or feel any. I didn't feel lost or confused.
I like this whole Mr. Grimm. And the fact that, now, but you have to understand, the Brothers Grimm, we were running the West Side Club scene 4-4, and I love that his lunch is his brother. We'll talk about a way to, first of all, the Brothers Grimm are completely gone, as being anybody who's stepping in Leviathan's way or being used as an example. I love the Invisible Man at the table, too. Am I the only one that wanted to see some of his food going down?
No. Yeah, yeah.
Because I guess the food would vanish because you can't see him?
Well, see, that's, there's a lot of different Invisible Man stuff, but I always think that it takes, his like stomach has to digest it before it would actually be invisible. So you would see the chewed up food going down the pipe.
But we don't see the pipe
getting churned up in the stomach. But once it gets broken down, then it becomes part of him. It's not a foreign body inside him. It's kind of like clothes don't become invisible when he puts them on because it's not part of him.
But they're not inside him.
Well, but his body is invisible. So the physical shell is invisible so you can see through it. So if he puts a foreign entity inside him, then you can see that foreign entity until it becomes a part of him.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's that starts to make my head hurt. Because I guess that would mean anything that's put inside him would remain visible.
Unless it can get broken down and become part of him. So if you did an implant in him, that would be one way to track and monitor the Invisible Man, because that would be like the tagging they do on animals. If you jacked him with that, guess what? Now you can't get rid of that because your body can't absorb it.
But if you go under that theory, if he takes off his clothes right now, then you should be able to see things, whether he's eaten or not recently.
Well, not if it's part of his body. So all his internal organs, all of that has the same invisible factors.
But what I'm saying is, if you're going under food,
right,
that would mean when the food digests, it would still be visible.
I would say not food digests, because then once it digests, it's now part of him.
No, it's not. It's excrement that's being expelled by his body. It's not part of him.
I always thought excrement would come out invisible.
Really? Why?
That's how I always figured with the Invisible Man.
So do you think that's part of you?
Because it's part of him. It is who he is.
So you think your excrement's part of you?
Well, yeah, it is a part of you. It's not a fun part, but it is a part of you.
But
just like your tears
when does
part of you.
When does food become part of you?
When it's completely broken down and digested. So once it gets out of the stomach, that's when it's part of you.
But isn't the theory that there's always stuff in our stomach that hasn't been totally like if you were to cut open somebody's stomach right now, there'd still be stuff in there, right, that hasn't been fully broken down, right? So wouldn't the Invisible Man always have stuff there?
Well, it depends on what he eats. Now, if he eats something that, like, if you swallow gum, that's going to be in your digestive tract for years or months or weeks or whatever the thing is, because the human body can't break it down. But if you eat like a steak, the body can break down all parts of a steak, so you're not going to have that.
Okay. So we're assuming this Invisible Man, if he takes off his clothes, he's never swallowed gum.
Exactly.
I don't know why we're talking about this, and I started this. I don't know how we got on this. I'm just fascinated by this is exactly what I love about Batman Inc. All the quirky, weird characters you have there, like an Invisible Man sitting at the table, eat with. And honestly, if that little cube of, I guess, steak wasn't on his fork, I wouldn't even be asking this doggone question. But I'm asking it because I'm like fascinated by the fact that you can't see this guy, and we never see him eat the food, right?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I guess he did, yeah, because he's back down. He's got his fork back down on the plate again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he would. Do you think he would? I think he's the kind of guy that would still eat that piece, even though the Brother Grimm is being thrown out the window.
Well, yeah, you don't want it to go to waste.
No.
Come on. It's not like he's getting thrown out the window, or
right.
It's not like he was fed his brother. It's
Looks like your mother's trying to get my attention again. I love seeing the Frank Quitely style Batmobile used in this series. With Bruce driving it.
Yeah.
It's great to see that, because I always liked that vehicle, so it's great to see that being brought back into Batman Inc. again. I always liked the idea that Batman would occasionally drive different Batmobiles just because he has them.
Sometimes you just gotta, just flesh out the ride and roll with it. Go old school a little bit.
Is Bruce being arrested in the beginning because of what happened to Damian? Because he's trying to sell it that much? Tell the others it's over, Alfred. Batman, all of it, the madness is over. Is he trying to sell? Because Bruce Wayne, you're under arrest. The police are coming there.
Yeah.
Is it because Damian has... Are they trying to sell Damian? Because that has to be taking place before this, right? Before the issue? I mean, after the issue, I should say.
Yeah. I'm thinking here.
So is it because of the events at the end of the issue? Like, somehow they're selling this to Leviathan.
Yeah. This is this is definitely the message to Leviathan, to try to either back off... Well, actually, probably not back off Leviathan, but probably back off some of the would-be assassins.
But the only way you're going to back off the would-be assassins would be if you back off Leviathan.
Well,
why wouldn't you?
Leviathan threw an open contract out there. So this is kind of narrowing the field.
But, Jim, if the contract has been cashed, then that's the quickest way to narrow the field.
Okay, yeah.
Because the contract's just been cashed by this guy. So why would assassins still be chasing after a prey that's dead?
Okay, yeah.
So I'm looking at this as a Batman ploy.
Yes, yeah. We're seeing the same thing.
Yeah. Speaking of action sequences, this is Chris Burnham. I believe that's the name, and I apologize. I've really loved the artwork that he's been doing, and I'll go back and check in a second to see the name. But that fight sequence, I spoke so much about it in Earth 2 in the earlier part of the episode how much I really enjoyed the flow through of the Flash and the combat. I love seeing the acrobatics of Damian here. I thought that looked really, really good. And it is Chris Burnham. I just wanted to make sure that I was shouting out the name correctly because I really enjoyed his artwork on Batman Inc. And it's so great to see him working again on Batman books since because the series was on that little hiatus for a little bit. Now we've got this back in, and this action sequence. Damian it's funny, that little pistol's become a great Robin. I really enjoy seeing him in the role.
Oh, God. Well, he's made it his own. It's his own style to the Robin. Now, you think about every Robin that's come through, they've had their own personal quirks to it, and kind of Damian's showing us his way. And I do like the fact that he is very acrobatic. He's very agile. He's, probably not as good as Dick Grayson was in his heyday, but he's definitely got an edge on Tim Drake. Tim's my Robin, but Damian's got an edge on him, especially with, the acrobatics, with the style, with the fighting. So there is some definite perks that Damian has over Tim. Now, Tim still has the deductive, still has the science, still has, that mindset of the bat, but that's something Damian can learn in time. I think we got a chance to have, Damian truly become the heir to the mantle. He can really become what he's always claimed he is.
Yeah, I think so too. But I like, again, that being accepted by others. Well, I think he's already accepted that mantle. As far as I think his role in Robin has cemented that he is Bruce's natural heir. It's just that I think everybody else accepting it's going to be the issue. I think Bruce has already accepted it.
I think there is a definite comfort that Bruce has with Damian taking over, but there is still an uneasiness with the fact that he may turn it over. And I think part of that is just Bruce doesn't want to give up the mantle. Bruce is Batman. He's not Bruce Wayne. That's part of who he is and what he does. So I can't see Bruce just, easily giving up the cause. And that actually, I think it would be kind of a funny moment when you see an older Bruce Wayne and it's time for him to give up the mantle and pass it on. Will he be able to? How hard will it be? What will the difficulty be behind it?
Yeah, I agree. See, I'm not ready to see that. See, I want to see Damian have a nice long run as Robin. I don't... See, for me, I've always enjoyed Bruce being Batman. I like the progression of the Robins. Damian, to me, almost... As an adult, I kind of want to see him go the Nightwing route or the Tim route, where he earns his own identity. It's kind of like, I don't want to see Tim become Batman. I don't want to see Dick become Batman. I loved it when they did it. I thought it was great. But here's the thing. I think Dick Grayson as Nightwing, when you read Nightwing now, you see a character who embodies everything that Dick was when he was Batman, but also shows his own being his own man, his own self. He's earned that right. Tim, I want Tim in a solo series, first of all, because I'd love to see more of Tim Drake being explored in a solo series. But I think in that solo series, we'll see why Red Robin is his own defined character.
Yeah.
And I think it's me, I guess, growing up with the whole Earth 2 concept, I always liked it better when Robin dropped the Batman-style Robin adult suit. He had one that was Batman, but with an R in the front. It was Batman's suit.
Yeah.
And then he went to the more traditional Earth 2 suit that looks kind of like what Tim Drake's did.
Yeah.
When, it was kind of a hybrid of the Robin suit and Tim Drake's suit. When they had that adult Robin suit for him, I always liked it because I liked the idea of him growing as an adult and him having his own role that he made himself. Because that was before we really had the idea that there was going to be more than one Robin. Before there was a Jason Todd on the scene. So we had an adult Robin operating on Earth 2, and it just showed a progression for that character. I always kind of liked the idea of the Robins, because I think they're so well defined as individual characters. Like Jason Todd, I like the idea of him being Red Hood. I like the idea of and Red Hood perhaps evolving if he becomes more a part of the Bat family again. I like him with the whole Batman symbol. I like the storytelling reason that isn't something he would have chosen. It just kind of happened that way, and it became his own little joke. But it fits, for him to have that kind of costume on. I love the Red Robin suit now, which I didn't think I was going to when I first saw the whole winged look and everything, but I think that's really cool. And that's a suit that could continue to evolve as Tim evolves. And Damian, I think Damian is an adult. I'd love to see if he is still Robin, which, could very well happen. I'd like to see his continue to evolve with his hooded look or whatever, because I just kind of like the whole, he's made that outfit his own as well.
See, I really dig the hooded Damian outfit.
I do too.
I kind of like that, and I like the fact that he's, especially some of the usages they've had of him just, in the Batman and Robin one when he's issuing the challenge. He has that one scene where he goes, forewarned is foretold is forewarned, or forewarned before prepared, or I can't. Oh, I'm messing up the line. But
forewarned is forearmed.
Yeah, thank you. Forewarned is forearmed. And as he's doing it, he just flips up the hood and leaves. And I could completely visually see him doing that, even though this is just paper in front of me. I had the 3-dimensional image of him actually moving it and him talking as the rain's kind of slightly hitting it, and completely pulled me into. And part of that's artwork on the story, part of it is just really getting into what's being told. And it's his costume has a lot of neat little nuances to it that make it personalized to him.
It reminds me of when Tim became Robin. I remember reading that, and I remember that was a nice slow build to this kid being out of a costume to adopting like a Dick Grayson-ish or Jason Todd-ish, costume. It was the original Robin costume, and then earning his own suit. When Bruce finally approved him becoming a Robin again, because he felt like he didn't want a Robin, but he felt like he needed that role. He saw Tim's point about, this being something that's keeping Batman from the darkness. And we got to see Tim's gradual evolution. I see the same thing happening with Damian. And it's the more I'm getting to know Damian, it's funny how, and I'm not saying you're wrong for wanting him to, I know you're big on this whole idea of Batman having a successor, and you're not alone there. I guess I'm so into Batman's Bruce's role, and there's not a right or wrong here on this. So I know I say it and we're all this way, I think, as fans. You're very into the idea of progression. I'm very into the idea of progression. I'm in the idea of Bruce retiring, and if Bruce retired, his boys would take over Gotham in their own respective roles. Versus, although I liked Batman Beyond, but that was very different. I don't know why I'm okay with Batman Beyond. I guess because that was so drastically different than Bruce being Batman. I don't know. I was okay with that for some reason. So I guess that'll be a contradiction right there, because I do love Batman Beyond. But I guess I'm into the idea of Dick Grayson. I think he is Nightwing. He's earned those stripes. I'm more into Robot Batman than Dick Grayson giving up Nightwing, and I don't know why.
And I'll actually agree with you on that. When Dick first put on the costume and he was going around as Batman, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. But now, with his series, again, I get to see, the Dick Grayson. I get to see Nightwing. And I'm in agreement with you on Nightwing. I want to see him stay Nightwing and not put on the mantle. He did it because he had to, because Gotham needed him. And in the future, if he ever needs to do it again, he will. But I like him as Nightwing. I'm glad they put him back to being Nightwing. And same thing with Tim. I want Tim to stay as Red Robin, or even he can come up with a completely different name and go a completely different route, but he doesn't need to. He can be Red Robin. There is something with me and Damian, though, that I don't want to see Damian create an alter ego. I really do want to see Damian go from being Robin to adult Robin to Batman.
One of the things I like, though, and this is funny because you used to be real big on Tim becoming Batman, him being the successor. One of the things I loved when Teen Titans, when it explored this, that future Batman, was the discomfort that, that part where Tim has lost something when he became Batman. Dick lost a little of something. He had to become something else when he became Batman. Damian, I think, would be the same way, because I think Damian's learning who he is, not learning to be Bruce. I don't want to see Damian grow up to be Bruce. I want to see Damian grow up to be whoever Damian's meant to be. Like, this kid has developed enough of an identity for me now that I'm in the place that I want to follow Damien's progression of where Damien's going to go, not him being forced to be his father. He can follow his father's footsteps without becoming his father. And I guess I'd be more into Damien, like, coming so far into his own that he grows beyond being Batman, if that makes sense. Because I feel that Tim and Dick have grown beyond becoming Batman. And I don't know why that I feel that way. And I guess that's the difference with Batman Beyond, because he was never somebody else beforehand. Terry McGinnis became Batman, that version of Batman. He didn't have an identity before that. It's different when you've got these kids who've had their own identity. Like, Damien's becoming his own version of Robin. He's not like Tim. He's not like Jason. He's not like Dick. He's his own version of Robin that I think is just as valid as Tim Drake was. Because Tim Drake, when he came on the scene, I was blown away and mesmerized by this character straight on through till he became Red Robin and Damien took over. To the point where look how uncomfortable we were when there was a new Robin introduced. We weren't too sure about Damien, It took us a long time to warm up to this kid. But now I think Damien's filled his spot, and he's in a place that Tim Drake was in when he was getting his start. He's exciting, he's edgy, he's interesting. Tim Drake was all those things. And I think I want to see Damien grow into being what Tim Drake is. I want him to see him become that type of character where we're cheering for him to grow beyond being Batman, not to be Batman. And I think that's the distinction I have between him and a Terry McGinnis in Batman Beyond, who always was Batman, his Batman.
Right.
And I don't know why. And I think we're saying the same things. You have this passionate love for Damien. I do too. I think we just look at it differently. And I don't think you're wrong or I'm wrong, or I don't think it matters that way. I think we just have different preferences. To be honest with you, if they take a logical progression where Damien becomes Batman, I know I'm going to love it because I loved Dick Grayson when he took over as Batman. I did love it. But there's that part of me that would always long for them to find a way to bring Bruce back, because I just like seeing Bruce as Batman. I connect Batman to Bruce. And I like the idea now that Nightwing's Nightwing. Tim Drake is Red Robin. But we've got Bruce, and we've got this interaction, this family that's got to try and deal with this new person in as Robin. And there's something I think that's interesting because Bruce is there, and Dick is there, and Tim is there, and Jason. Look at this like weird dysfunctional nonsense they've got going on that's super cool because of it.
Oh, definite. Yeah. Yeah, I was going to actually make a joke and say, no, you are wrong and I'm right. But to be honest, I can't, in all honesty, say that because we each have our own opinion on where we want to go. And with me, when I'm saying I do want to see Bruce retire, part of me would like to see it in an Elseworld story. Part of me would like to see it somewhere else. I don't want Batman 11, issue number 11 of Batman to show Bruce retiring. I don't want, it happening like in a month or a year from now. I do enjoy Bruce as Batman, but part of me would like to see the right creative team, the right team just telling that story, the passing of the mantle. And it could be who knows if this will actually really happen, but maybe it will. Maybe it won't. Maybe factors will change in the story as the actual reality of the life unfolds. Like an annual, a Batman and Robin annual showing Damien as Batman. And maybe, a kid, one of their children as Damien's Robin. Or it just, variations on. There's a couple stories like that I would like to actually see, and I'd like to see the right creative team that are passionate about these characters do those stories.
Here's what I'd love to see. You and I talked about this a few years ago because you mentioned how passionate you are with this idea, and I like it too. I like progression. We're seeing progression with these characters with the fact that you've got a Robin legacy being crafted here. So that is progression. I would love to see, and we talked about this back then, and I'd still love to see this, a book called Real Time, where it's the whole DC universe, and it's a single monthly book, maybe told anthology style, but with the option to do full issues devoted to certain families and things like that, where you see real-time progression of the characters. Where you see them grow old, you see them have kids, you see them, all these things that you don't see because you want to keep the characters in a certain age range, but let them grow older in those books. As a year passes, a year really passes in their life. If that makes sense, then you would see that progression you're talking about, and you don't go back, you don't backpedal. It's called real time, and just keep it that way. And do that with a single book. I would love to see that. And that's Elseworlds. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I love the Elseworlds concept of that. I would love to see that. And you don't just do it with the Bat Family. You do it with all of them. Or as many of them as you want to include in that world to do that with. I think that would be fantastic. And that's another great use of the multiverse. And it'd be a different sort of styling of a book. I'd read that title in an instant.
I'd jump on that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. The right creative team.
Yeah.
The Bat books in general, though, have just been absolutely fantastic. And, those are 3 books the past week I reread Batman Inc. These 2 new Batman books came out, and I really wanted to talk about them because big events happen in all of them, and it's a great time to be a Batman fan. It's funny, with all the comments about, and I've seen them on the Facebook group pop up, and I think just over the internet in general, with you're trying to fit in the Batman progression into what's going on with the New 52. That's, to me, it's there, it's real, I agree with it. At times, because I like to be able to, on my own, plug everything in a way that makes sense to me as a reader. Whether I agree with everybody else, kind of a lot of our discussion where you and I just agree to disagree. If we're even really doing that, I think we're both saying to each other, hey, you're kind of right in your own way, just kind of go with it. I need to, as a reader, have my own continuity that works for me. I don't care if it's DC's official continuity. Right now, I'm choosing with Batman to believe that he's an urban legend. There is no time frame. People don't really know his time frame because it doesn't work if you try to fit it into this 5-year loop. It just doesn't work. That's the only one that's really a stickler for me. I would love to hear from some Green Lantern readers if you're having that same problem, because I am a Green Lantern reader. I'm reading all the Green Lantern books. I've read a ton of Green Lantern in my life. I'm not having this issue to the same extent. You mentioned a lot of questions you have. I'm still having those, but I think a lot of those are gradually being answered. Kyle's continuity has obviously been revamped because Kyle's getting the ring was not the same way that it was presented. Close, but they're clearly time compressing a lot of that. The rebirth of the Green Lantern Corps happened much faster than it really did. So I don't know. I guess I'm taking it that way with that continuity because Hal's much younger as well.
Right.
So I don't know. It's an interesting time to be a DC fan. Is there anywhere else in the universe that you're finding that? Like, Wonder Woman doesn't have that issue for me, obviously, because of what they've done with her. Aquaman, I don't feel that. Flash, I don't feel that. Is there anybody else? Am I missing somebody that you maybe are seeing where you feel like the continuity doesn't make any sense in that 5-year frame?
No. Actually, I think we got a pretty good vibe on everybody.
Yeah, I do too. That's the only one where it doesn't fit for me. And I think it is the Robin progression that's the only place, because I don't feel that at all with Batgirl.
Now, there is one character I do wonder about.
Okay.
And it's Deathstroke.
Okay.
Because, now, granted, it's very easy for him to just be an assassin, and he wouldn't have made any public waves, and I could see him being around a lot longer than 5 years. He's had to have, because he had the lengthy military career, the assassin, everything they did with him. But he is augmented. He is a meta-powered. So if Clark was the introduction of the meta-powered in this universe and all that, there was people who were tweaking with genetics long before Clark came around. And even think about the Ravagers, they're all older than 5 years old. So we know the government's been tweaking with this stuff and adjusting and augmenting people. So there's could be some timeline questionabilities. Now, as I said, with Deathstroke, I think it's Deathstroke. He was a hired gun. He was a killer. He was a soldier before this. And now he's, doing his thing. I think he's probably took advantage of the superheroes, if they're going to come out and they're going to be all flashy, I'm going to put a costume. I'm going to use that as my advantage as well. So I could see Deathstroke, the persona, coming around within 5 years, but the person, the man, has been around a lot longer than 5 years.
Aren't we saying that Stormwatch was around longer?
Yeah, Stormwatch is another one.
Because Stormwatch actually is Demon Knights, right?
Yeah, it's the progression of Demon Knight team.
Right. Going off of what you're saying, I think that adds some validity to the government experimenting with certain things. There's a lot more underground stuff going on before Superman's appearance. Superman, I think, is being listed as the first superhero. And when you say that, that doesn't mean that Batman wasn't operating then. Superman was your first public, in your eye, in your face superhero. I think that's what they're saying now. Going back to that being him being the one that the public became aware of. And I guess that's how I'm choosing to view this continuity. Like there might have been other people operating, but not in the public eye. Superman was the first one that opened up this concept of what a superhero is to the public.
Right.
And I like that. I actually like that they're going back to that concept, him being like that shining beacon, and that works for me. Is that am I taking it the same way you are?
Oh no, we're definitely we're seeing things the same.
But I agree with your ideas that there were things going on before that.
Yes, and also the magic universe was going on before that.
Yeah,
because Constantine, Zatanna, Madame Xanadu, they were all around long before the 5-year mark, doing their thing. Especially because Xanadu was around in Demon Knight, so we know she's been around for a while.
But as far as operating in a superhero capacity, that's something I think Superman introduced to the world.
Well, the concept of Justice League Dark, that's something brand new. That's even younger than the Justice League itself, because we saw them coming together, and they came together after Zatanna was already operating as a superhero. She was performing as a magician and doing her stuff, and just the performing and the entertainment. But when Superman came out, when Superman made his appearance, that's when she as a hero started arising. So she wasn't just the performer, she was doing stuff outside of that.
See, this is the way I'm choosing to view Batman, too. A lot of what you're describing here, there's a lot of vague DC history before Superman's appearance that would be more urban legend, more underground, magical legend, different things like that, like you're mentioning, things that are happening that don't fit into that 5-year span. That, Superman's the pivotal appearance of Superman was the birth of the superhero in the DC universe. That was when that concept got introduced. That's when superhero teams came about. Demon Knights is not a superhero team. Stormwatch, not a superhero team. They're a different kind of operation. Justice League was the first big, top-tier superhero team. Right?
Exactly.
So I think that's the way that I'm viewing all this. I do think that there was a history before Superman, though, in the DC universe. There has to be. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. You have to take it that way.
Yeah. And you think about with the Green Lanterns, Hal was fresh, with the Green Lantern Corps. He was still beginning the phase during the first, during that first Justice League story arc. He was a Green Lantern. He'd been through training, but he was still new to the game.
And also not the first Green Lantern. So the Green Lanterns were operating.
Right.
The Green Lanterns were operating before Superman's birth.
Oh, long before, but they weren't making their presence known to society because Earth wasn't ready for it. It's a backwards planet. They're not going to let them know about this intergalactic peacekeeping force. It's if they ever had to operate or do something on the planet, it was done completely covert.
Now it's funny. Hal was operating before Justice League, and Flash was operating before Justice League. So
yes,
I wonder when they came on the scene relative to Superman. That's the interest. So that's the interesting part of the whole thing. Because Superman had already been in his super suit,
right?
At some point in time during Superman's coming on the scene, those two guys were birthed on the scene, right?
Yes,
and that's before Justice League.
Oh, definitely, yeah. It's before Justice League because they've worked together and they knew each other,
right?
Because Hal called for backup and got the Flash there,
which was cool. Yeah, that was cool. I like that. I'm sorry. Good.
Well, no, I was just going to... And actually, you think about it, then the stuff with Aquaman as well. He was doing his stuff with the others before the Justice League.
Yeah. So, see, this is the guy... I don't get... Do you get angry speculating about continuity? See, I don't.
No.
I try to fit things in myself. I'm actually not a big fan of the comic companies necessarily feeling like they have to spell out every little detail. Superman's, I think you can easily do that with. Because there's been a time frame established right from the initial storytelling that works. But I think there's a lot of other things. If you're saying you're leaving a lot of the history of these characters open-ended to fit in, then leave them open-ended and don't put a time date on that. I think that's the mistake. We're putting a time date on something that doesn't need one. I think that's where the problem is. It's that 5-year window they're trying to fit too much in for certain characters. And they don't need to.
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything in Batman storytelling, though, and I'm still going to go back to that because there's a link, and we'll wrap up with this. the reason why we got on this topic is Batman specifically. I think the problem with Batman is trying to fit something in 5 years that doesn't make sense in 5 years. I don't remember a Bat book designating that this all happened in 5 years. And I don't know why it needs to. There's nothing that happens in Superman that designates that Batman has to happen in that same 5-year frame. Because that doesn't make... these guys are vigilantes. They operate in urban legends. His time with Dick Grayson as Robin would still be them being an urban legend, not being a superhero.
Exactly.
So it doesn't contradict what's going on in Superman to say Batman was operating longer. So I guess I'm choosing to believe it that way. Then
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree
my
with
head
that
doesn't
statement.
hurt. My head doesn't hurt then.
Yeah.
Come on, Skreel. Let's pay these Plutonian beam makers a visit.
Want to shout out our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. We love having you part of the show. Sponsoring us this episode, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Remember, DCB Service is a digital partner. You can earn 5% credit towards your DCB service order from shopping at any of those digital sites right from their website. Doesn't cost you anything more to do it, but you get credit for doing it. They also have the Savage Hawkman, $2.99 regularly, 40% off, only $179. That's DCBService.com, your comic book pre-order source. Over at InStockTrades.com, they're doing a DC Comics hardcover and trade paperback. A bunch of them are for sale at 60% off. They have other amazing discounts on the website as well, but this is a special they're offering right now. There's a lot of clearance items, but hardcovers are just like Aaron and Ahmed from Vertigo. It's a hardcover that I wanted to read. It's 60% off, only $10. I mean, I'm going to pick that up. That's crazy nuts. Adam Strange, the two Adam Strange ones, it's Adam Strange Planet Heist and Adam Strange The Man of Two Worlds. One of them's $8, the other one's $7.98. For like $16, you can get two Adam Strange trades. I love Adam Strange. So, I mean, it's kind of cool to be able to kind of browse and see if there's something maybe you wanted to pick up or were missing at 60% off from InStockTrades.com. Jim, our next episode, we're going to be discussing Before Watchmen, the first 3 issues, the first 3 titles that have been released of Before Watchmen. We're also going to discuss some Action Comics, some Justice League, and some Batgirl. So we got a really packed episode, and we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. Villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.